dog, and they all rubble on great, but they are the most unbelievable hunters. They just, I mean, there was a live pigeon in the kitchen the other day. They got through a cat flap, right? Which I managed to get out again. I don't know how they got it in. There was a complete squirrel. Yeah, alive. A pigeon they got in alive somehow through the cat flap, right? Which I then had to kind of capture and take back up the garden and release. I thought maybe it damaged its wing, but it just took off like a bow of hell. It was fine. I found a dead squirrel, an entire squirrel in the garden. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, they look like butter wouldn't melt in their mouths, but they're total bastards, basically.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Like, yeah, when I was living down on the south coast, when I had my husky and greyhound, it was, you know, anything that dared come in the back garden while the back door was open, and it was just death sentence.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like you've got like a, you know, as close to, you know, a primal animal in your house with a Siberian husky.
Yeah. They don't fuck around, do they?
No. They're like so loyal to humans, right? But anything else that's like not part of your household is like, that's a threat. That's a threat.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fucking kill it.
Yeah. Oh my God.
You know,
so did you have to go through some sort of, was there a process when anybody came to the house or anything like that?
No. He was like, "Oh my God, humans! This is great!" Like that. He'd be like,
I've never seen a human. They're brilliant.
You know, like all that, you know, type of thing. And he was a big dog, you know, bless him. But
yeah, huskies are big. Well, no, I've got a very small dog, black dog, who just, you know, he's desperate to sort of protect the house. He loves everything, everybody, every other dog. He never fights for anything. But my God, as soon as everybody comes to the door, it's like, Jesus Christ, there's someone at the door, you know.
Oh, hands on deck, call to arms.
Oh my God, I'll protect you. It's Jesus, every day.
Oh my God, that's so good.
You know,
I was lucky I never had that, like, my husky, he never barked.
Yeah,
like,
but as I keep saying to Sarah, it's like, how was he? 8. Oh, that's good. It's only 7 more years to go then.
Cool. He's about 60% in. That's great.
Yeah, he's not very big. He's a bit stupid. He's already had 2 bloody legs replaced. It's like they have what? These man. They have
legs replaced.
Yeah, well, no, not replaced. So the joints replaced in his legs. Their knees go. It happens to some dogs, and my particular dog, which is nothing special, it's just called a Louchen. He's just like a little black piece of coal.
I remember.
Anyway,
we were doing selfies with our animals, weren't we?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, his cruciate ligament goes on them, which is apparently you get with skiing. I don't know, I don't ski, but apparently that's a skiing problem. It's in your knee. Anyway, the first one went, and it was sort of, the insurance paid some of it. And the surgeon goes, well, the good news is the other one will go. It's 90% chance. If one goes, the other one will go. And the insurance were like, yeah, no, we're not getting involved in that. So this dog's into me for a lot of dough, man. So he's on borrowed time as far as I'm concerned.
You owe me, man. You owe me. You owe what you owe.
He owes me, man.
He's
got to sleep with one eye open, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, God, yeah. So you better be careful how many frogs and shit he brings through. Shit.
Fuck yeah, man.
Fucking hell, man, that's amazing. God, I love them. And then, like, when they do shit like that, you're just like, oh my God, what am I doing? You know?
Oh God, it's a bloody nightmare. Yeah, I know.
When they're puppies, they're literally worse than kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the sad thing is that so many people. I mean, you know, I'm sure you've read about it as well. All these, you know, obviously clearly well-meaning but misguided people who bought puppies at the beginning of lockdown and thought, oh, brilliant, yeah, we'll be in it. But it's just it's so difficult. It's so difficult. A puppy. You're right. I mean, they are worse than kids. You know, more difficult than kids. You know, it's Anyway, it's a drag. It's a drag, and I think it's a shame. But a lot of puppies have had to be rehomed after that sort of 6 months, because people have suddenly realised that it's not just gambling in the long grass with a lovely puppy. It's really hard work.
It's not all the Andrex adverts where it's like,
no,
well, it rolls
really
over, that's all. Yeah. When it happens all day, every day for 6 months,
they destroy everything you've got.
Yeah, your shoes, you know. I remember, like, I just bought like some like biker style boots, and I was like, yeah, I can't wait to go on tour with these. And yeah, the dog just literally just fucking chewed through the buckles on the side and just ripped them open. And I was like, wow, that's like 100 and something quid just gone
straight in the bin.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
It was like, well, is it my fault for leaving them there? It's like, no, because that's the bloody shoe rack. you know type of thing. And I had we fostered a dog for a bit with my husky and greyhound. Like, this is going back nearly 10 years.
Yeah.
And we had like one of those, L-shaped chaise longue sofas.
Yeah.
We got it off. We got it for like 200 quid off some students who were obviously like, oh fuck, we bought this brand new Italian leather sofa and didn't know what to do with it, so we got it super cheap. And it was massive, but it was really good quality. And I went to the shops at the time where I was living. It was literally across the road. It was literally, I was gone 15 minutes and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna get some Coca-Cola or something. Came back and I was like, why is there only 2 out of the 3 dogs here? What's happened? And he had tunneled in to I've got a photo of it, I'll send it to you later. Just tunneled in to the sofa and just went through it.
Oh my God. Was this the foster dog?
Yeah. Just
wow.
Went round. I was like, I have never been so upset in all my life.
What can you say? I mean, it's like they look at you and you're just like, ah!
And how I'd found out, because I was like, then I was like, what's all this stuff over the floor? Like, the whole floor was just covered in this like foamy stuff,
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is this? And I was like, is this like some weird thing from a leak or something? Do you know what I mean? Because I was like, what the hell is this? Really perplexed, so fast. And I was like, what the hell? And I was like, sofa looks strange. And it was moving. And then out the whole way, Doug just popped his little head like that. And I was like, I don't know how to I don't want to harm an animal, but I really want to pick you up and throw you through that window.
Yeah. No, I know. God, horrendous. Oh well, anyway, it is what it is. So yeah, it's a full sort of menagerie in the Sheldon household. And it's, once frog season normally lasts till about sort of April, but then there's a few hanging around. And then the dog has been known to get in there and try and eat some frog spawn. So it's the whole thing is just a waste of time, really, for the frogs.
Kind of like the Lion King, but in your pond, you've got all this big
it's craziness going on, man. I've got newts in my pond, and it's just there's all kinds of shit going on in my pond.
Dude, you need this. Look, this is why, because you're not an Instagram dude, so you need to get on Instagram.
I know.
Don't worry about.
You're not the first person to say this. I've got to embrace it and get in there. I mean, I'm on Facebook, but I don't know. I'm too lazy. That's the problem.
Mate, Instagram's it's the easiest thing and it's the best thing for musicians.
Oh yeah, no. I know it's really good. It's just it's like I joined Twitter, right, for one reason, that there was, the Tim Burgess does these Tim Burgess listening party things for playing records and stuff.
Yeah.
Via Twitter. And they did one for an album I'd done with a band called Oceanside. And Mike Vennett, who is the singer who I'm really good pals with, just rang me up and said, "Are you on Twitter?" And I went, "No, why? What's going on?" And so anyway, told me about this thing. So I said, "All right, okay, well, I'll join Twitter for this thing." Right? And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm such a fucking Luddite. So anyway, I got on it, and at first, and they were streaming the record, playing the record, and people started making comments, and I didn't say anything for the longest time because I didn't know how to do it. And I was thinking, I'm going to press the wrong button and just sort of say, something to the world rather than to this thing. Anyway, I finally got through it, and at the end, and everyone's sort of like, "Oh yeah, man, yeah, I'm going to friend you on Twitter." I really don't bother because I'm turning it off after this, and I've never been back on. But I'm just, I don't know. I've always feel like I've got something else to do than go on there, and I'm sure it's good. I mean, I'm not knocking it. It's just I'm always doing something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
addictive, though. I understand.
They are addictive. Yeah, it's really weird. Like, because I hate social media, but
you've got to use it though, right? I mean, I use it because it's my manager got on me to get on. It was my manager who got me on Facebook, whatever it was, years ago, because he said, you got to do it. And I was like, all right, okay. I was just not that fussed about it, but it's good. I enjoy it. I mean, it's nice to catch in like you, and I catch up with people and think that's great. I like it. But,
yeah, it's good in its kind of essence. But you know, when you start like over dabbling, it can become a problem, as it were.
Well,
as
I mean, I have
the music industry.
And it's great, but with Instagram, I need to go because I just I'm actually I'm a fully paid up member. I just don't use it.
You've got an Instagram account?
Yeah, I've got an Instagram account. Yeah, you can probably find it, but I think there might even be one picture on it. I don't even know.
What are you under it as?
Eh?
Well, are you under it just as Chris Sheldon?
Oh, probably. I can't remember. I really can't. Oh, no. It might be Chris Sheldon, record producer. I can't even really remember. I can't remember, to be honest with you. I mean, that's how often I use it. It might be something like that. I don't know. Are you having a look now? See if you can find it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a Chris Sheldon, but you're on the back of a boat.
I doubt that would be me.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm not that much of a salty old dog.
There's a lot of hashtags. Oh, hang on.
Is there?
Chris Sheldon producer.
That's most likely, but I don't know.
Tommy's following it as well. So
that'll be it then.
That'll be. I've requested to be your friend.
Well, I shall go on and say okay then, and then turn it off. No, I do. I think I follow, like, whoever asks to follow me, I'll go, yeah, sure, no problem. And yeah. I mean, I just, you know what I mean? It's one of these. I should, and I'll probably get a lot of enjoyment out of it, but I just haven't bothered. But
I love it for the music side of things, and I'm really into architecture, so I follow a lot of architecture designers and people like that, and people who build their own houses and really random shit.
Yeah, like it's fascinating stuff. And well, weirdly enough, one of the few things that I do follow on there is, apart from like friends who do that, is a picture framing company that I make picture frames for people. It's my hobby, right?
No way.
I do, yeah. And they're really no, but I'll tell you what happened is I, in between, mixing records, I made picture frames for people. I mean, it's fully amateur, right? But what happened was,
how do you do that?
Hey?
How do you do that?
Well,
you cut glass and stuff, and
no, I don't cut glass. I actually use acrylic. Normally, I'd just go. I could do the cutting glass thing, but to be honest with you, it's such a faff. I'll just go down to the glaziers and get them to do it. But no, I make the frames and the mounts and the whole shebang. But what it was my wife Sarah, at the beginning of lockdown, there was a thing called the Artist Support Pledge, right? As in fine artists, and it was a thing that was set up between artists that basically the maximum you could spend on their art was, I think it was 200 quid, right? So anywhere up to 200 quid. And the point being that if, say, one artist, once they'd sold £1,000 worth of art, you were obliged to then buy some art from another artist. It was a sort of, a thing that would generate, sort of sales for people. And Sarah's big into her art, and so she went right, and she got on this. And during the summer last year, there just seemed to be an unbelievable amount of paintings. Most of them are not particularly big. There may be sort of, I don't know, 2 foot by 1 foot or smaller, or whatever. I mean, none of them were huge. Yeah. Kept turning up, and all I could think of was, I've got to get all these framed. It's going to cost a fortune, right? So I thought, what, I'm going to teach myself to do it. So I did, and first I had to rebuild my shed. Right, I got a studio in the back garden. I got my shed because the shed was basically no one would want to go in there. It was horrible. So I put a new roof on it and a new floor and walls and stuff like that. Basically, it's like Trigger's broom. It's like what is left of the old shed. New walls, new roof, new floor. It's still the same shed, right?
I love that clip. That's great.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And so I just sort of started getting into making these things for Sarah. And the first ones were a bit shit, but I basically taught myself by watching YouTube. And I thought, I can do this. I'm quite handy. And it just sort of snowballed, and I just kept people going, oh, can you make me a picture? And it just keeps going. And I'm like, oh, God, you're all right. And, they pay for the materials, and I just whack out a picture frame. So, yeah, man.
That's sick.
Well, You make it sound like it's really bad, but yeah, no.
No, I like it.
No, I know, I'm joking.
I love that shit,
motherfucker. Yeah, no, and I quite enjoy it, but it's, you know, it's if I've got like a week where I'm not doing anything, I'm not mixing or anything, then I'll bang out a few pitch frames, because I hate being bored. I hate just sitting around. I can't.
Yeah, I'm the same, man. I get like I'm like addicted to working, you know.
Yeah,
and
yeah, no, absolutely.
I get it from my dad. Like my dad, you know, sometimes he does 29-hour days, you know, like no sleep, and just like
that literally took me a second to process.
I know, right? Yeah. Because I said to him, I was like, how long have you worked? You know, because he was like texting me like really early in the morning.
What does he do, your dad?
He works in death.
So it's Mr. G Reaper.
Yeah. Yeah. So he is like a body collector.
Wow.
So
now there's an unusual job.
It's pretty cool, you know. He used to work in IT, but you know, he's always going to be like 70 next year.
Okay, so this is a sort of like a silver surfing new job sort of thing.
Yeah, but he's got well into it though. Like he's been doing it for like nearly like 10 years, I think, right?
Wow.
And he's like addicted to working. That's where I get it from. My brother's the same.
I want to talk about your dad. So
yeah, totally.
Does he go around to people's houses to pick up bodies or something? Is that is somebody croaks?
Yeah, and do you know what? Like some of the stories are funny. You know, like people die in weird positions, and some of them are like, I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's funny. And he said like the family are laughing as well. Like, you know, someone would die like on the toilet or something like that. You know,
yeah.
Bizarre shit, and then you get like some horrific stuff, of course. But one of them, right? I flew because they're my parents, because I'm from Jersey, right? So like they still live in Jersey, and I flew back. This is like years and years ago. It's like when he first started doing it, and there was this family, and obviously very distraught.
How many dead people are there on Jersey, man? I mean, is he like?
Well, actually, do you know what? It's the highest suicide rate in the United Kingdom.
No wonder you left.
Yeah, right. Honestly, yeah, I'd say.
Damn.
Yeah.
Really? Well, okay. Well, I didn't know that. Fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, I've had 5 people from my school year die, and they've all committed suicide.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the population of Jersey? Is it like what, 1 million, 2 million tops?
No, dude. No. It's like it's
I mean, I said 1 million. That's stupid of me. No, what about?
Well, it's like 100. It's 100,000 people clinging to a rock.
Okay, 100,000, not 500,000. 100,000. All right.
Yeah, so it's like it's 100,000 people clinging to a rock. The Jersey's only like 9 miles by 5, and then when the tide's out, it's like 10 miles by 6 or something. Wow. You know, so
yeah.
You know, and then there's like God knows how many schools on there. You know, it's
And is it Jersey or Guernsey the one with all the sort of the Nazi gun emplacements and stuff, or is it both of them?
It's both of them, yeah. Jersey and Guernsey, they were occupied by the Germans.
That's right. I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, I'd like to go to the Channel Islands. I've never been, and it's I find all that sort of massive sort of, again, architecture and all that sort of stuff is just extraordinary, you know.
Oh, dude, well, if you go, my dad does drive. He also does like driving for people, like, you know, if like military go over there, he takes like the people with like no number plates and stuff around.
Yeah.
They go, I want to go in there, and he's like, I'm not sure we can go in there, but you know, winds down the windows like, oh, I've got so and so with me, you know, let's go. Like he's done all that. So if you go, he knows all the great places to go and all this stuff. So yeah, just let me know and I'll hook you up.
Yeah, I'd really, I mean, I find that sort of stuff fascinating. I mean, it's macabre, but it's fascinating.
Oh, dude, it's amazing. You know, there's like the German underground hospital in Jersey, which was like right next to my old house that I grew up in.
So were they your playground? I mean, when you were growing up, I mean, all that.
Yeah. Jersey was. I moved to the UK March the 25th, 2005, and I was like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to be a rock star.
Yeah.
You know, like that. And now I'm 34 and a half, and I'm like, I'm still going to be a rock star, Mom.
yeah, well, I know I'm going to get a proper job one of these days.
Yeah.
So it's only 1982 when I started.
Yeah. It's fun, isn't it? Yeah. It was an interesting culture shock moving to the UK.
Yeah, it's a couple of people I know. There's an engineer friend of mine who's from Jersey. I think it's Jersey, maybe it's Guernsey. I think it's Jersey. And yeah, I mean, it sounds fascinating. I'm definitely gonna. It's on my to-do list to do some.
Yeah, well, let me know when you do it, man. I'll hook you up.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll get my own personal tour from your
Oh,
old
dude,
man.
yeah. My dad fucking loves it too. Yeah. So like, he'll love it.
So we just got to stop off and pick up a body. Would be 1 minute.
Yeah, just don't mind me. Just quick nip and tuck here, and then
yeah,
we're off. You know.
Yeah, just amuse yourself on Facebook for a minute. I've just got to nip in and get a body.
Yeah. Post something on Instagram, and then
That's great.
Yeah, dude. Fucking hell. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. It's well, he's done a lot of driving for people like Brian May's wife was doing something in there's the Jersey Royal Opera House, which is quite a famous thing for, you know, people on the circuit. And so I think Brian May's wife was in a production or something, and my dad was her driver for like a month or something.
Yeah, wow.
Holly Johnson from He when he goes over, my dad drives.
Is there, I mean, you know, again, forgive my ignorance, but is there, I mean, do bands play there? I mean, or is it just it doesn't have, or is it, I mean, it's clearly not on the circuit, you know what I mean?
No, it's not on the circuit, no. And
you know,
the only real way of getting there is by boat, really, if you're a traveling musician, because it's not like you can call up, you know, Fender and go like, yeah, can I just get hold of the Fender?
Yeah, we need a backline.
Yeah. You know, and like the thing is, like most people's backline is like, yeah, I've got this Line 6 Spider here. Do you know what I mean? Like, and a Pearl Export drum kit if you need to use it.
Yeah.
You know, things like that, you know.
And I got 2 Yamaha Pacificas. That's your lot.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Do you need strings?
Yeah.
Let me know when, and I'll see if I can get some for you. Type of thing, you know. Yeah, it's literally like that, you know. I remember like as a kid, like going out to, you know, kind of like, Dad, can we go to Denmark Street so we can see real guitars?
Wow, that's amazing. So do bands come? I mean, do bands play there?
Yeah, my dad's actually like, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know how to describe his band without sounding like it's some sort of like cheap band, but they're like a functions corporate band thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My dad's a bass player, and they're like a big like 11-piece band. They've got like a brass section and stuff like that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're all like
function band,
like self-taught musicians and stuff, and they got a thing that they do, and it's really cool. Like it's really fun to get crowd going. And every year in Jersey there's a thing. Well, there was 2 things. There was one called Jersey Live. So I think when that happened, it was like it was to try and, you know, get people in Jersey some entertainment, you know. So I think they had like, you know, people like the Fratellis and the Kooks. There'd, you know, be like a 2-day event, and then there'd be like some local bands, and then it, you know, go up through the bill type of thing, you know, kind of like I call it like a Radio 1 festival, you know, like that whatever was in there would be kind of playing. It's not like a genre specific festival.
It's like if you go to like, you know, like mini festivals that, you know, a farmer puts on, and you have local bands, and then there'll be one sort of vaguely named act, but they're still brilliant fun. I mean, it's
it's just
and local people get a chance to sort of, you know,
let the hair down and all that.
And local bands, you know, can you know, have a go, sort of thing, and it's brilliant. I love it. I think those sort of things.
Yeah, I love it, man. Like I've got
always a terrible reggae band. There's always
a terrible reggae band.
Always. You know,
what is with that? It's like people
don't know.
People trying to be like UB40. Like
they're just fucking terrible. And there's always one. Right?
Yeah, it's usually some like stereotype like white fat bald English guy going like, yeah man, you know, like.
But they'll just be terrible, and their songs will go on forever. I mean, like, literally forever.
Literally like, 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah,
you know, and
you're like skanking, and it's just like this.
They've just discovered like a chord that they can upstroke on, and like, I'm doing it. And,
and it's they're just local reggae bands are always pretty terrible, but you know, it's fine. You know, it is what it is.
There's a few genres which are like culture specific, you know, and I just don't think that, you know.
And Jersey hasn't got it going on.
Yeah. Jersey does not have reggae going on, dude.
No.
It's definitely not, you know. It's just not
God.
like that shit at all, man. Fuck.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, fuck me, dude. Yeah, so yeah, Jersey, mate. Go over there. It's great.
Well, yeah, I will actually. I do want to go. It's one of those things. It's, you know, it's weird that, you know, this little island that we live on, and there's all these other ones. You know, I'm not big. I mean, I'm big into motorbikes, and I've still never been to TT, and again, something that I've got to do one year, and it's just, you know, it's not difficult to do. I just haven't done it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm the same. Like one of the most adventurous things I did was I went to the Le Mans 24 hour.
Oh yeah,
and that was awesome. That was great, you know, and it was so cheap. Like to actually get a ticket to the event, you know, and where you just wander around with all, you know, everything on it. It was only like, I think like 17 euros at the time when I went. It was like, really? You know, and it was like a 30 quid there and back on the ferry, and I just drove down.
Yeah. Well, Le Mans not that far to get to. It's not difficult to get to, is it?
No. So in a few hours. So, you know, I mean, when you've been on tour most of your life, you're like, yeah, that's a breeze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be there before lunch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, they do all that weird stuff where they time your ticket over in Europe, don't they? Some of them.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know. I've never been to Le Mans. I've not been to it, so I don't know.
Oh well, it's like you go down the motorway and then like they give you a ticket, and it's like time.
Oh, I see. Oh, see. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, time you on the motorway. Yeah.
So if you've like exceeded a time, you know. So what I see what people do is they just fucking hoon it down, and then they get
stop for a fag
at the end. Yeah. It's like, you know, where there's a loophole, where there's a will, there's a way type of shit.
Of course, man. Absolutely. That's, you know, laws are there to be bent, aren't they, really?
Yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. Yeah. I've just noticed, I don't think I'm coming out of this microphone.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. You know what? I remember when I first bought my first drum kit that I'd actually sort of saved up some money for. And well, my first one, I swapped a motorbike for a drum kit, right, when I was about 16 or something.
Right.
And it was terrible. Like some old, I don't even know what it was. It was just awful, made up of just various things. It had sort of literally, you know, tin plates as cymbals. I mean, it was terrible. Anyway, and then I saved up a bit of money when I was about 17 or something. And I thought, right, I'm going to go and buy a drum kit. Yeah, you know, I'm so excited. And I went down to ABC Music in Esher, down in Surrey, where I grew up. And I went in there, and I had like, I don't know, 200 quid or something like that. And I didn't know what I could afford or anything. Anyway, I looked up on the shelf, and it had sort of secondhand drum kit, was shells really. And I saw this Ludwig one, and it's 200 quid. And I thought, wow, Ludwig, 200 quid. I've got to get this. Anyway, and it was at the back, and it was sort of slightly dark. And I thought it was a natural wood finish on it. I thought, great, this will be amazing. So they got it down. By the time the guy was like huffing and wheezing and panting and generally cursing when he got it down, and it was bright canary yellow. Someone had recovered it. And I was too embarrassed to ask him to put it back, so I bought it anyway.
Have you still got it?
So I had this bright... No. Unfortunately, a friend of mine lost it. How do you lose a drum kit? But a friend of mine lost it. I lent it to him. Yeah. He's still a good friend of mine, but somehow he lost a drum kit.
He lost a drum.
And I bought it. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So, but it was, honestly, man, it was yellower than a yellow thing. It was, and I was just sort of, yeah, that's great. Thanks very much. Here's the money. You know, I was just like, oh Jesus. I mean, nowadays you go, well, thanks, man. Let's stick that back up there. But it was a beast, man. It was a big old thing. I mean, I think you could build a house on it. I mean, it had some seriously heavy shells, but it was great. But then, and I had that for a couple of years, but then I started in the studio. So as a T-boy, and I took it with me, and it was sitting in the studio in Utopia where I started. And then there was a really amazing session player, drummer called Tony Beard, who is still, I think he's still working. I think he lives in New York or something now, but he was an incredible drummer. And he played with Go West and all these bands in the 80s. He was an incredible player. And he saw it, he got wind of it, and he just said, and he's like, can I just use your kit? I can't be asked to bring mine in. And I was like, Yeah, I don't mind. And he was, I mean, you know, I would play it, and it'd be like that classic thing of like, you know, a great guitar player makes any amp sound great, you know, and
Yeah,
somebody's sort of
totally. Yeah,
banging away, and you go, God, it sounds terrible. And somebody goes, oh, I'll try it, and you go, it sounds fine. And then you get back to the guitar player, and it still sounds terrible. So it's a bit like me playing drums. So, you know, it's sounded like someone whacking a wet fucking salmon on a slab every time I hit the snare drum. And he and Tony would go, yeah, I'll use that. And of course, and it sounded just brilliant. And he used to bring me presents for his gifts. Oh, I'll bring you a couple of stands or something. So he used to bring me like bits. So the drum kit got kind of bigger, or skins or something like that. And yeah, for a couple of years this went on. So he would just use my drum kit, and it was great. And then let's say I lent it to a friend of mine, and he lost it somehow. I know. How do you lose a drum kit?
How do you lose a kit, man?
I don't know, but he did.
Fuck. I once turned up to someone's house to teach them guitar, and I was thinking, fuck, man, I love this Strat. It's so light. I picked up the guitar case with no guitar in it.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, this is so bad. So I just went, listen, I'm not going to charge you for
Here's
this.
the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, I think I ended up buying the parents like a bottle of wine as well. It just felt like such a dickhead.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh God, you know, like
guilt going on there.
Yeah, just like, you know, like, oh my God, like I can't believe that happened, you know.
Yeah.
God, yeah. That was when I was living in Acton, London. That was the awful place to live.
Was that a grim time of your life?
Sorry?
Was that a grim time of your life living in Acton in London?
Yeah, I think it was. Do you know what? Actually, talk about death. I moved there because I went to study at like Guitar Institute, which is now funny BIM London, where I work.
You know what? The weird thing is, I know exactly where that is. My management company had offices virtually opposite. That was down in it was like in a little kind of courtyardy bit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember
industrial estate thing.
That's right. Yeah, my management company, their offices were virtually opposite. So I just see loads of people wandering around, you know, sort of toting guitars and what have you.
Yeah.
And there was a cafe there, right opposite.
Yes.
That was a cafe there, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the ultimate greasy spoon. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck, man. Yeah. God, I gave that cafe so much money. Like you'd be like, trying to get into, you know, next morning, you'd be like, I've got half an hour. I can definitely put down a classic full English here right now. You know, just get through it. You know?
Yeah. They did good sausage sandwiches in there, man.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Do you know what? That's funny. That place like spawned so much stuff. Because I didn't realize like one of my best friends, like Jimmy Owen, he went there, but he was in a different class. But we were in college at the exact same time, and now he's one of my best friends.
And you didn't know him then?
We didn't know each other then, yeah. You know, and I was doing a session. I was playing guitar for someone at the time, and one of the other people that she was playing with, I now work with, and we were like, we knew each other back in 2005. And it's so crazy that, and also at that time, do you remember the band Rooster?
No.
They were like they were like the first band from like BIM to like get signed, I think, before the Kooks. And they were recording the record right next door in like some studio thing or whatever. Well, obviously a studio. I mean, what a weird thing to say, but I'm now friends with the drummer. He's a really good friend of mine, Dave, you know. And he was like, yeah, I think you were the only guy that bought the album, mate. You know, type of thing. He's now drumming for Vex Red, funny enough. So yeah, like weird, that little scenario like spawned so much stuff.
Did you enjoy your time there?
It was, you know what, it was a funny one. It is not the place it is now. It's like, you know, physically, of course, the building's not the same, you know, moved and what have you, but the whole way it's set up, it's just completely different, you know. And it's interesting because I went there 2005, and then because I witnessed a murder, I was like, fuck this. So then I moved down to Brighton. So because my mum's originally from Brighton. So I was like, well, I know Brighton. I'm just going to move down there. And then my mum, because I was like, okay, I'm going to jack music in. Obviously, it hasn't worked. I was supposed to be an overnight success, mum. It didn't work. And I was looking up to becoming a hairdresser. And my mum found BIM and she went, give it one more shot. So I kind of owe a lot of that to my mum, you know, to still be in the industry and make that move. But
what did you go to the BIM in Brighton?
yeah, I went. So after Guitar Institute in London, I went down to Brighton.
You went to BIM.
Yeah, and then went to BIM there. And it was only its like third year, I think, at that time.
And did you prefer it down there?
Yeah, much better. The whole setup, like, the thing is, my kind of the reason why I moved was like, well, I can't have a music career in Jersey. You know, it's like if I wanted to be a potato farmer, brilliant, you know, then wicked.
Yeah.
You know, wicked, yeah, of course, you know, and yes, you definitely get a lot of money, you know, farming over there is like huge, right, you know.
Right.
But, you know, it's I don't do that. No, I'm
That's
just
not.
not. Yeah, and the thing is, like, I'm like really dyslexic and ADD, you know, so I didn't do very well academically in school. So that was very troubling. So I didn't want to get into any of that. Ironically, I'm now a master's degree lecturer, which is fucking weird.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. Yeah. Like, hated that. And now I'm doing what I, you know, weird, whatever, you know. But yeah, very, very weird thing to like. I was like, well, I'm going to move to London Guitar Institute and find like-minded people, start a band, and we're going to become famous, you know. And when I got there, they didn't have a songwriting course at the time. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just get sick on guitar. Because
you were literally being taught to be better on guitar or whatever. It wasn't.
Yeah.
You didn't do recording or anything like that sort of thing.
No, it was literally like, okay, we're going to discuss shred today. And it's like, cool, I have no interest in shredding. But then part of it, you know, you naturally, to get through the course, right? You naturally build up skills to do it. And then it was like, today we're doing jazz. And it was like, oh, you know, and it just went through like that. And I think I took, and then the third term was like, you know, you can pick, like, there's 2 extracurriculum type of thing. Like, you get to choose which ones you wanted. And there was like quite a wide variety of stuff. But it was done on, if there was only one person picking one subject, then that subject would be, you know, taken away. And for some reason, I was like, I'm going to do rock fusion.
Right on, brother.
You know, I was like, yeah, you know. So, funny enough, because of Jeff Beck of the Who Else album that you did.
Oh God, yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I think I can do that. You know, like, threw myself like 18 years old, like, into the deep end, like, yeah, I'm really into rock fusion now. Like, doing all this.
My thing. That's what I do.
You know, and then I took like metal, you know, like, you know, and I wasn't very good at soloing and stuff, but I'm a beast rhythm player, you know, good at riffs and stuff like that. And I got so much. I was the only person, even though everyone could blues solo me out the sun. Everyone could, you know, theory. I was like on the average line of everything. You know, it was very kind of like, what do you call it? Humbling when you get there and you think that you're fairly good, because like, well, I get to music school and like, you know, I remember there was this Japanese kid that was like, he couldn't speak a word of English, right? But he had like a $4,000 Steve Vai gem Ibanez thing, and he could just fucking like rip. And every day he was just like, it was crazy.
Mate, I remember just on that tip, when I was at school, right, and we used to have the inter-house, we had like houses in my school. You had the inter-house music competition, right? And you know, they're always terrible, right?
Yeah.
And there was always one kid. There was one kid who was the music teacher's favorite because he played the piano accordion, right? And he was really good at it. And he used to play Orpheus in the Underworld, like jamming away on his, and he'd win every year. And we were like, fuck, man. And you still remember, this is 1976, 77, when it's punk is taking over the world, right?
Right. So
and there's this guy giving it large on his piano accordion. Anyway, and I remember, like, you know, a couple of us would, like, you know, play in bands and stuff, and they were all terrible, you know. But there was this one kid, this little Korean kid, who'd joined the school, and he was in like the first year or whatever. So he was, 11, and he walks up on stage, right? And he was new anyway. He walks up on stage with this kind of weird looking triangular mandolin, right, with a little pick, right, that was sellotaped on a piece of wool, right, so he wouldn't lose it. Obviously his mum had said, right, you're going to lose your pick, so so he walks up there, right, with this little banjolele or whatever the hell it was, right, and everyone's like going, oh, and he starts going, and he was a motherfucker, right, and he ends up putting it behind his head, and he's playing like this, like Hendrix, right, and he's blasting on this thing, right, and he finishes and sort of literally takes a little bow and walks off, and everyone's just like, what the fuck was this? It was unbelievable. He just shredded on this thing. Honestly, we weren't expecting a lot.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Held up by a bit of wool. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
I know,
shit.
he's probably a very successful sort of corporate banker or something now,
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it's like completely wasted talent or something.
Yeah, I mean, he was unbelievable. It's like, what the hell was that?
Yeah, I remember, like, even one of the teachers was like, like, he could literally, this guy can speak any English, like all the texts in English, and he was just standing there, but like he was so advanced,
he could play like anything.
But they were just like, he just saw the tablature, and then was just like no feel, no soul, just robotically,
but nailed it.
Like every note crystal clear.
Yeah, amazing.
And it was just like, right,
yeah,
like even one of the teachers was like, why is he here?
Yeah, why are you here? Yeah.
He can do everything in there, and like his obviously like knowledge of chords and stuff.
I wonder what he was looking for. I wonder what he was. Or maybe he just thought it was going to be a lot better than it was.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a really bizarre thing because like I said, as I got there, I was like, oh yeah, man, I'm going to find like a bass player. I'm going to find a drummer. We're going to write songs and stuff. And no one wanted to do that. And it was just like,
right.
I was so perplexed for so long. And that's why I was like, well, I'll take jazz fusion, rock fusion type of shit, because no one was interested. And I was like, I'd wear a Foo Fighters t-shirt, and then someone would be like wearing a Steve Vai t-shirt, and it was like, and then they'd like poke fun, they'd be like, oh,
really?
how's your chords coming along, man?
Wow.
And I'm like, then I was like, wow, I'm back at school. I thought I came to this place to do, I'm a freak and a geek, I got out of that system to try and be in here. And it was
brotherly love in the musician world.
Yeah, it wasn't, it wasn't like that. And I felt very outcast from the very beginning. In fact, actually my first week, I still didn't have a place to stay, because there was a complete mess up with what they told my parents and stuff was happening. They're like, yes, there's accommodation here. And what they said to my parents, they're like, don't worry about finding accommodation. There is accommodation here for you, which implied dorms and stuff, right? And they were like, but how much is it? And they went, oh, roughly this amount. And then, but you'll sort that when you get here. And what they meant was, you can find rented accommodation here.
Oh,
so I fucking turned up there with my life in like my mum and dad's like 4x4, with no place to stay.
Oh man.
So it was like, so I had to find somewhere to live very quickly. And what was bizarre about that, I ended up getting a flat with an amazing bass player, who I'm still in touch with, Stu, and he lives out in Iceland now. But the other guy was Celine Dion's drummer.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. So I haven't heard from him since, but I saw him. I was like, later on, he wasn't Celine Dion's drummer at the time, but he went on to like, but I always coin it like, yeah, he was Celine Dion's drummer when I was there. Like Celine Dion was like walking around acting flat.
Yeah, we want to go on tour, but my drummer he's at the Guitar Institute.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, there was, like when Busted and McFly and stuff came about around that time as well, there was an all-girl band at the time, and he was a really exceptional drummer, you know, funny bloke, but really, really good drummer. And he was obviously got called in to like teach the band like how to play.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, and I came out the shower like into the kitchen, you know, like in just a towel, and then this all girl band are there.
Oh, wow, okay.
And there's me like all like, oh, you know, like and I'm like, oh, you're right. And he's like, and I'm like, well, obviously I knew who they were. You know, I can't remember them now, but I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you're right.
Yeah, hi there.
You know, like, yeah, hi. You know, like with my belly hanging out over my towel. Do you know what I mean? Like there, I'm trying and like pouring a pint of Coca-Cola into a glass. I'm like, yeah, this is a bit awkward, man. Like, why is everyone in the kitchen?
Really sex god up.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like wet back hair. You know, I think I had like my hair, like I had long hair at the time. I had it in one of them turban things. You know, so I'm just like, where? Just so stupid.
Oh,
and he was like, oh, and he was from Denmark. So he was like, oh, hi, this is so and so, this is so and so. You know, like all the way along. And I was like, oh, you're right, yeah, nice to meet you.
yeah, this is not awkward or anything.
Most awkward thing ever, yeah. And like, especially like that was like a month of me being in the UK. I was like, what the hell, you know, type of thing. You know, it was just fucking every. It was just so random that time. Like, I mean, it was just very whirlwind, you know. I remember some guy said, if you teach me guitar, I can suck your dick. In the street.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I was like 18 years old, just going, no.
I had that once years ago. I must have been about 19 or something, and I was down in the King's Road, and I was with a girlfriend at the time, and I was in a pub, and some guy, and I used to have long hair. My hair was really curly as well, so I basically looked like Charles the First. Like, it was not a strong look. So this old boy just suddenly turns around to me. He goes, "Do you pose?" And I went, "Sorry." He goes, "Do you pose?" And I went, "No." And he goes, "I'd like to sculpt you naked." And I was like, all right then, yeah." And he goes, and I went, "Well, not really." And he goes, "You remind me of Michelangelo's David." And I went, "Okay, thanks very much, but I'm going to go now."
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a proposition to be sculpted by some old boy in the King's Road. Maybe I should have taken it up. I could have sold it years later.
Fuck, dude. Yeah. I mean, that could have been, I mean, then you could have framed it.
Well, I could have made a plinth.
Yeah. There you go, dude. Yeah. You know, it's funny, isn't it? The choices that, not the choices, but the kind of like forks in the road that life gives you at random periods of your life, right?
Well, that's right. And it's up to you to make the right choice, isn't it?
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah. Well, so I suppose, like, you know, like, well, we've been recording for an hour and I haven't really even introduced the show, but I suppose that doesn't really fucking matter, does it? You know, we've been
later.
like, no, we don't need that. But like, how did you get into mixing then? So you were in which studio did you say?
Well, I started as a T-boy in 82. Yeah, right. 82, so about 19. And I started at a studio called Utopia. And a friend of mine, my best mates, Tim Palmer, who's a producer and mixer and what have you, and really successful guy, lives over in Austin now. And he and I were at school together, played in bands, and he said, "Oh, look, there's a job going I'm moving up to do whatever it was." He said, "Do you want the job?" And I went, "Yeah, man." So I was in, and I started as a T-boy, and it kind of in-house, and then you sort of gained experience, you became an engineer and what have you. It was all in-house. And then I left to go freelance. I was working with this one producer who basically got more and more. He got more and more gigs, and he wanted me to go with him to work with him. And I sort of said, okay. And so I went freelance. I would have. How old was I then? About 23, something like that. 24 maybe. And I went freelance as an engineer. Maybe a bit younger, I can't remember. And so then I started working with him around London, well, around the world actually. We went all over the place. And then I started getting, and I always made a policy of being really friendly and getting on well with the girls. It wasn't always girls who worked in the A&R department. They were the coordinators, and they would basically, you know, if you got on well, they would kind of like, you know, almost like pimp you out for jobs, because you know. So I always made a point of getting on really well, and then I always be really nice.
Have I ever told you I look like Michelangelo's David?
Yes, exactly. So I don't know whether you know this, but so I started getting more jobs as a freelance engineer. And this is, you know, we're talking mid-80s here,
Right.
and then Little Mixes came in, and through engineering and also producing, because I'd always wanted to work with rock bands. The studio that I started at, Utopia, did lots of things, but it was not a lot of rock. They did, and guitar, which is what I did at school, you know, punk rock bands. It was a lot of jazz funk. There was a lot of big jingle, so you had everything happening in 3 hours. It was pretty crazy. So you learn to get your shit together fast, you know, and how to do sessions quickly. Which has stood me in good stead over the years, you know, sort of.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, all hands on deck.
And so anyway, I was freelancing as an engineer and producing bands, and whatever I produced, normally, because they were small bands, there was no budgets to do anything, so you'd mix it yourself. So you'd sort of, you kind of like learn on the job. I mean, in some ways, actually, one of the great things about the studio where I started, Utopia, was it was quite a relaxed place. I mean, it was very big, expensive, great studio, but the hierarchy was quite relaxed, and so you were allowed to take multi-track tapes out of the tape library and practice mixing, you know, and which is extraordinary when I look back now, when, you know, people have spent thousands of pounds making these records, and then we had like Wham multi-tracks in there. We had, you know, all kinds of stuff, really early Wham stuff, all kinds of stuff, and you could take it out and just like sort of, you know, practice mixing. Just had to obviously not erase anything. And so you had to, you know, and they were terrible. I mean, I was terrible at it, but it's one of those things, like anything, you know, it's the amount of hours, just the 10,000 hours thing, isn't it? The more you put into it. And I've certainly done that now. So anyway, as a freelancer, I was sort of picking up little jobs, and eventually I split from this producer and just concentrated on doing sort of rock bands and little guitar bands, really, which is what I loved, and that's what I wanted to do. And I had an affinity for that, you know, having played in a couple of bands, and just, you know, I wasn't really, you know, interested in working with sort of solo artists, particularly because I like the dynamic of a group, you know. I like all the characters. I like, you know, running the session sort of thing, and making sure that everyone's into it, and, you know, everyone's having a good time, and, you know, and it's I find that fun. I find that sort of quite, you know, challenging but exciting. And there's always like the one guy who doesn't want you to be there because he wants to produce it himself, and so you've got to kind of win him over. That's the first thing you've got to do, you know. It's you know, I've said before to people that to me, record production, well, with bands, is, I'd say it's like 75% psychology and 25% is you know, ability. Because as long as you've got people in that space where they feel comfortable and they feel pumped and they feel, you know, safe isn't the right word, but that they can, that you're there with them, and you're let's go for it, let's do this, you know, whatever you do is going to be great, and I'll help you get there. And when people are in that space, and when they're in that environment, they'll produce extraordinary things. You know, they'll do things better than they ever thought they could. You know, they'll sing better than they thought they could, and they'll take guidance and constructive criticism. It's just like, you know, that's great, but I know you can do it better. Let's and people will try harder, and they'll be, you know, so pleased with the end result, and it's great fun to do, you know. And I never understood that whole sort of old school production that people used to do, where they would literally sort of bully the performer into you know, into producing. It's like, well, I don't understand that. So I really enjoyed that, and then I basically I was getting offered more and more mixing work, and I like producing bands. I really enjoy it. But I think I kind of prefer mixing. I still like doing it, but I prefer the mixing side. I think that, you know, I like both things, but I love being able to, you know, sometimes turning a you know, a sow's ear into a silk purse. There's nothing more, you know, exciting than you know. So it's great when you're presented with something that's beautifully recorded and what have you. It's just, you know, it makes your job easy and it's fun to do. But when you've got something that is not particularly well recorded or produced, and that's no slur on the people. I mean, I know what it's like, you know, and I used to get very fed up with people who would sort of, you know, when I was a T-boy and somebody would be mixing something, because when I started, there were no real mixers. It didn't really happen. You know, this was a new phenomenon that was happening.
Right.
You know, you know, it was always, if you were the engineer, you mixed the record, you went right through.
Right. Was it kind of like a mix as you went type of thing?
Well, no, you'd mix it at the end, but the idea of bringing in somebody new to mix the record at the end didn't really exist. It was in the sort of mid 80s, I suppose, that thing started to happen, where like they might go, there's this American guy coming in who worked with whomever, and he's going to mix the records for us. It's like, oh, okay, you know. And so I'd be in the studio and as the tape op and set it all up, and this guy would come in and he'd make it sound fantastic, and you'd like, oh, okay, great. And you know, I'd learn from all these different people, and so I'd started getting offered jobs to do that, to come in and just mix a record, and I really enjoy it. I really like it. And so the things you know, I get irritated when you know, people sort of, oh God, yeah, you know, just sounded terrible, blah blah blah. Because yeah, I understand. Obviously, you know, you can always make things sound as good as you possibly, or you should make things sound as good as you possibly can. But you weren't there when they were doing it, and record production can be as simple as keeping everyone sober and in the same room. You know what I mean? It's totally, it's not necessarily like, I've written this great hook line for you and, you know, I've rearranged the whole thing. It's like, yeah, my job is to keep you all fucking here and not killing each other, you know. And you know, and I've been there. And if you've managed to get some vocals out of some guy and it's okay, but it's a bit rough and ready or whatever, it's like, well, job done. You know what I mean? And it's like, and it's my job as a mixer to present it in the best possible way I can.
Right.
Which is the thing you do as a mixer. You're basically presenting the song in the best possible light that it could have, you know, and whether that's a case of like sifting through and bringing out the sort of the most interesting parts, or the hooks, or, you know, the vocal, or making sure the vocal is sitting so that, you know, you can really hear what the person's saying, because they sweated blood over these lyrics. I want people to be able to enjoy them. You know, so it's an interesting job. I still enjoy it. You know what I mean? It's fun, and you know, sometimes you just want it to sound like, you know, it's got to sound like death from above. You know what I mean? It's got to be like sort of, and then other times it's got to be more subtle, and you've got to find ways of doing it. And it's not one size fits all. And I enjoy doing the whole lot of it. I mean, I definitely have a sort of reputation for doing rock music, but I love doing it. I love doing all kinds of stuff. You know.
Yeah,
I have done.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you something about that, because, you know, is there like a when you get presented with a project, right? Do you go, right, I know how I like a kick drum to sound, I know how I like a snare to sound, especially, and I've always said this, right? The best engineers, the best mixers, and especially live mixers, they're always drummers. I don't know what it is about that. My experience of the best people who
maybe because a lot of it I think is because for a lot of modern, well, not much modern music, rock music is it's based around the drums, isn't it? The drums are sort of like the engine room, if you like, and if you get them sounding good, everything else can hang off it like sort of tinsel, you know, and look great. But you've got to and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that you know, once the drums are sounding slamming, it's like you can really go to town with the guitars, and, you know, do all kinds of things, because that it's like, you know, you can spray your car any kind of color you want, but as long as the engine's good, you know, and it's the bass and drums have got to be really kicking, then you can do what you want with it. You know? Yeah,
totally. Is there like a default sound you go for then, regardless of like?
It really depends on the genre. It depends on the genre.
Okay.
Because, you know, there are certain, you know, sometimes I'll be like, well, we were talking about Ocean Size earlier, which I did, you know, fairly long time ago now, but it was a fairly, well, it was quite a unique drum sound that I came up with for them. or developed with them. And very sort of springy, sort of. I mean, if you listen to it now, be like, whoa! It's very sort of very natural. It was no samples on the kit or anything. It was very natural sounding, but very
right, okay, cool.
lively sounding drum kit. But then that wouldn't work, say, like the album I mixed for you, for instance, where it's got to sound like quite banging, like modern rock at the moment. The drums are not particularly roomy sounding. They're quite sort of tight and
like right
slamming,
in your face
very,
there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great, and that's how modern rock at the moment, or a certain genre of modern rock, sounds. Then you get like metal stuff, which is almost like it's just metronomic and very dead dry and very sort of very attacky, and all the blast beats and stuff like that. I don't do much of that sort of stuff. I'm not particularly good at it. I would imagine there's lots of people who are brilliant at it. But then again, I did an all-girl sort of folk trio called Wildwood Kin a couple of years ago. I really liked, and she plays a stand-up, one of those sort of stand-up kits where you have like, they're kind of quite odd, like the kick drum sort of goes upwards. It's almost like a big floor tom, and I think they're called cocktail drum kits.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
quite peculiar sort of sounding things. But anyway, she's a really good drummer, lots of tom stuff. And so that again was a completely different sound and a different, because that is all about their harmonies. That's what, so you make the drum kit sound good, but it's not about the drums really.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that the vocals are carrying this, but you want them to sound good. They're not an afterthought. So again, it's not like very roomy. You get a feel for things. You get a feel for what things should sound like with music. And like I mixed a really cool song recently for a young band, and it was much more in sort of Jamiroquai end of music, if you like, which was which I loved being asked to do, and it was all based around sort of like Rhodes bass guitar and little sort of funk drums.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, that's a real 70s sort of almost like Dead sort of sound, and it was great. It was really sort of a new challenge, and not just a case of just like no room around it. I mean, you actually have to put some effort into this. But yeah, I love it. I mean, I still love mixing records. I think it's brilliant. It's always fun. It's always a challenge. Things to do, and sometimes it's sort of really hard work, and I'm the same as anybody else. I'll get like sort of, I'll be working on something 2 hours and go, this just sounds terrible. This is all fucking wrong. It's just rubbish. And I would just scrap it all and start again. Because, I think I'm onto something, and then I'll be like, this is all awful. What am I doing?
Right.
So I'll go off and, but I tend to work in sort of short bursts. I'll do like 2 hours, and then I'll go and do something else. I'll go and walk the dog or whatever kind of thing. And then I'll come back into it. And, I'm not one for sitting there for 9 hours sort of beavering away, because you always sort of you suddenly you can't see the wood for the trees, so you take a break, and I'll come back in and listen to it and go, fuck me, that's loud, and I wasn't hearing it anymore, kind of thing.
Totally. You get like that ear fatigue, you do. I'm a bit of like I can't mix for shit, right? I was actually going to say, like, dude, check some of these things in my demos that I...
Thank God for that, because then you can employ me.
Yeah, that's exactly it, dude. Yeah, totally. I can't do it, right? It's funny. So when I've got this new project underway, and I'm like sending stuff over, like I'm just going, please don't judge on the mix, okay? Like, just listen to the song. Just listen to the song.
Yeah.
And like, it's so funny, like they're just like, fucking hell, dude, and don't ever go into mixing. I'm like, I know, I just don't get it. It's
a discipline like anything else, and it is that, it's just repetition. If I played you mixes I did in the early 80s, you'd be like, fucking hell, and you do what for a living? But it's just repetition, and you learn. The thing is, what you learn is how you get quicker and quicker at stuff, because it's like probably like songwriting. I couldn't write a song to save my life, but there are tricks that you learn, and you know, like anything, and with mixing is the same. I know how to get from A to B without doing this to get there. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
I
Totally.
know what they want. I know what the band are looking for. I know what they want. So I'm not going to be dicking around for hours with a certain, you know, like, oh, I'm really going to be pushing for the TR-808 kick drum. It's just like, it's not going to happen. They won't want this, so I don't do it. You know what I mean? You know, you
Yeah.
just, you know how to get there and deliver. Like, I mean, I just did a mix for a guy in America, and without blowing my own trumpet, you know, I just sent to the mix. He came back and goes, brilliant. Can you just make the vocal in the middle eight sound like it's coming down a telephone? I'm like, yeah, great. You know, it's done. I know what he wanted. So, and I also take the time to, you know, I listen on different speakers, and I've got like a domestic system set up, and I go through things, and I listen on lots of different stuff and do all the hard work before I send it off. So I don't get 3 pages of foolscap of like notes on the mix, because it's like, you know, I've already gone through that heartache myself before I send it out. You know, like if I was sending something to you, I would have already like, okay, I listened to it, and as not just as a punter, sometimes I actually have to sort of go, now listen to it as a punter. And I just literally, because I'm sort of sitting there listening like that, and I'll go, right, and I'll just put it on in the background, and I'll put on some speakers behind me, and I'll be like sort of looking at the news or something like that, and it's amazing, suddenly something will jump out, and I'm like, you know, God, I can't hear the bass at that point, or something like that, you know what I mean? And so I can quickly change it. But I go through a lot of those little bits and pieces, so that by the time I send it to the client, it's pretty much there, you know what I mean? And it'll be just a few, oh, could we turn the guitar up at that point? Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, like I remember when you first, I've never been so excited when you sent me the first song you sent back to me from the record you did with us
It was Grip, wasn't it?
It was the Grip. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, I remember before you sent it and you're like, here you go, what do you think? And I was like, oh my fucking God, you know, like, you know, I'm such a kid when it comes to this stuff. Like every time I get things back, it's like, you know, literally like just a small child going, oh, fucking hell, yes, this is here. You know, it fills me with that excitement every time.
Oh, that's great.
So before I listened to yours, I was like, I'm going to listen to the 0 level bounce. So I have like a juxtaposition in my head almost.
Yeah.
And I remember it, like just hearing that and like the guitars, I was like, holy fuck, like that. And I was just laughing. I remember just laughing with like happiness and joy, because it was just like, holy shit, you know, like that's the sound that I've always had in my head.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
and you've extracted it and gone, here you are. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it is quite a thing. That was one of the, you know, like people say, like, you know, moments in your career. That was definitely one of them, getting the first mix back from that. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm fine with that. I think it was only George was like, yeah, could you knock some, like, I don't know, some technical shit down? I was like, don't know what you're on about, mate. I just write songs.
Well, you know? I mean, the thing is, I don't even mind doing the, you know, like the adjustments that need to be made here and there. It's like, it's, of course, you know, it's like, you know, there's lots of things that are, you know, personal with you know, people like, oh, I just love that little lick or whatever it is. Can I just have that a bit louder? It's like, yeah, of course, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there have been occasions where, and I was talking about this recently actually with someone, and where you realize and you have to say, I'm not your guy. I'm not the guy to
oh really? Right. Okay.
Yeah, because and as I got older, you know, it doesn't happen very often, but you have to be realistic and honest about these things, because sometimes, you know, if something is taking like 1 million revisions and, you know, to get it right, it's just like, I don't know if I'm the right guy for you, because I'm maybe not hearing this and there are hundreds of mixers out there and they're all great, you know, and there's probably another bloke who's more in tune with there's no like set thing that bass has to sound like this and guitars have to sound like this, and, you know, there's 1,000 ways of mixing the song, and I might not be, you know, you might love you know, whoever it was I've worked with, but your music is something different, and so, you know, I can't you know, I can't reproduce what it is, you know, I can't go, ta-da, there it is, sort of thing. And there are occasions where I've had to say, look, I'm not your guy. You know, look, let's leave it here. We've done one mix, and we struggled through it.
Yeah.
But if I've got to spend 4 days, it's no one's going to enjoy this. You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, and you have to say that. And there have been occasions where I've just like, I can't. I'm not the guy for you. You know, that's fine. You know, and something personal. You know, it's just this is ridiculous. You know, we can't. We're not on the same page here, musically. So or sonically. So let's move on. But I mean, it doesn't happen very often. But it is. You know, you get a feel for these things, and you know when things are going south fast.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Big
know,
time.
and also, you know, I you know, again, if somebody asked me to mix a you know, urban track or a dance track or so, you know, I could probably make a stab at it,
Yeah.
and they might like it, but I doubt it. I'm not the
Yeah.
guy to do grime. You know, I'm just there's
Right.
a
Yeah.
ton of kids who are brilliant at that, but I'm not. I you know, and in the same way, you know, I probably wouldn't do like a jazz record. I'd love to have a go at it, and I could probably
Yeah.
make it sound pretty good, but I wouldn't be the natural. There's people who are brilliant at that, you know. So
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I wouldn't expect to get approached to do it either.
Yeah. Of
But,
course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
no.
Absolutely. Do you think then, you know, do some people get wrapped up in your name? They like, and I mean that in a polite way, of course. Like, do some people go, well, obviously we need to have our record mixed by Chris because of X, Y, Z, rather than over going, is he actually the right person for the project, as it were?
Well, I suppose that happens. I don't know. I mean, you know, there may be one guy going, I'd really like Chris to do it. The rest of them going, are you fucking mad? You know, no, we're going to have so and so do it. You know, kind of thing. You know, there's that's fine. I don't know, to be honest with you. Probably, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I think where it becomes more difficult actually is in production, when records that I've produced over the years that people have liked or have influenced them or whatever, and they'll say, oh yeah, you know, we really want to get Chris in to produce a track. It's like, okay, we've got like 500 quid and we've got a day to do it. It's just like, well, then do it with the guy who owns the studio, because just having me there, I'm not, apart from going hi, you know, it's not going to sound probably much better. I mean, bands I always would do pre-production with them, and we'd have the time to do it. And I don't need a ton of time. Like all those Biffy albums I did were made in short order. You know, they weren't spend a lot of time on them. We didn't have any money. They were really small budget records in comparison to, say, what they have now.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we didn't make them for nothing, but they were small budgets comparatively. And
did you produce those ones as well?
I did the first three.
Oh, right. So you produced the first three.
Yeah, well, the first record, I produced half of it, and I think it's Paul Tipler produced the other ones, half of it, and then I mixed the whole record. Paul did a great job, and I did half of it, and then I mixed the whole thing, and then I produced and mixed the second two. So the first three records were me.
They're my favorite ones.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, no, the only annoying thing is I wish that I'd had a chance to do some more records with them when they they left Beggars and signed a big deal and had a load of money. And it would have been nice to have done some records with a bigger budget with them, but it's all right. It's fine. You know, to be honest with you, it's very flattering to do 3 records with somebody, you know, let alone one. And, you know, and if I was in a band, I'd be like, yeah, let's try someone new now. I'd be, of course, you know, there's no, I wasn't, you know, I was disappointed, I suppose, because it would have been fun to do something with like, oh, wow, okay, we can spend more than, you know, 3 weeks making this record. But
right. Yeah.
That's okay. You know, it's fine. But yeah, probably. I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. But you know, it's difficult to work with any artist, I think, or a band or single artist, unless they really want you to do it. If anybody's not keen, it's an uphill battle. To try and prove yourself is just like, oh, really?
Yeah, it's an unnecessary thing.
I've kind of done a lot of stuff. Just have a listen. If you like it, great.
Yeah. If you don't, I've got other work. Don't worry about it, mate. Yeah.
Fine. No, I no hard feelings or anything, but I don't feel at this stage I need to prove myself particularly.
Yeah, it's interesting because how I came about knowing about who you are was, as listening to music, I was just like infatuated by it. And even though like I can't mix for toffee or anything like that, sounds have always interested me. And I was very fortunate because like my dad's a bass player, my brother's a drummer, and I was a guitar player. So like, and my dad made us a little like rehearsal studio in our house so we could play and I could have like a Marshall up loud. So I
You're a lucky kid, man.
You're very, very lucky kid. Yeah. So it was like it was an extension on our house for my grandparents. And when they passed, my dad converted it to a studio.
Did they pass because your dad converted it to a studio?
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. Maybe he's like, I'm in the game. I see where this is going. So maybe, maybe that was the, the seed for that, Fuck, could be I'll quiz him on that. Or you could ask him when you go to Jersey.
When he's driving me around. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, this is where I decided. So I was lucky to have that. I know what it was like to have like a loud Marshall. My old guitar teacher sold me his original brown face 800 when I was a kid for like literally like 100 quid or something. Like,
oh wow,
criminal. But he was like, I still keep in touch with him now, funny enough, my old guitar teacher. And so he was like, oh, just you can have this, learn how to use a real amp. So I was very fortunate that I was able to like make a really good amp sound shit and then learn how to use it. So then I think I had a grounding of like, I know how to make things sound good because I have a clear reference point in my head forever, but when I was a kid, I'd buy records, like, I'd get my pocket money and I'd take the 37 bus or whatever it was down into town in Jersey, and I'd go into like CDs stores and stuff like that, and I'd just go like, oh, I know that band, or I love the front of that cover, and then I'd look on the back straight away and just be like, who produced it, who mixed it, stuff, And then I remember seeing like Biffy, come on the TV for the first time, and my mum got me was it Questions and Answers, and I was like, wow, like this sounds great. Like when I was really starting to, of course I love like Nevermind, and like I was a massive grunge head and stuff like that. And my mum would spoil me with music, right? Because she'd like listen to like Boyzone, right? But then she'd listen to like the first Slipknot record. Like my mum just loves music, right? So like, she'd be buying like the latest metal CDs and stuff, and like, I saw this, do you want to listen to it? Like it was fucking great, And then my dad would like have like Clapton and Hendrix and like Black Sabbath and things like that on. So I was just so well cultured in all of that stuff, But so I started going like, oh wow, that that's really cool. Of course there was no internet. It's not like I could go, who's that? So it's just like, oh, that's really cool, and then like read it. And then like I got the second, there was the Infinity Land, and then
it was the third record.
Yeah. And I love that album. Like, and I remember like seeing what also really attracted to me, because I was like, oh right, someone's using a Strat, because I'm obsessed with Fender Strat. So I was like, oh wow, like
that's what Simon used.
Yeah, that was like a thing. I was like, oh wow, someone's using Strat in rock, because the naive kid, I was like, well, I've only seen Clapton play it, type of thing. And so I was like, right, cool. And then I went to see Jeff Beck at the Royal Festival Hall on the Who Else tour. And then I got the album afterwards, because it was just like, oh, well, Jeff Beck's a guitarist. Me and my dad went to see it, and we saw like Clapton and things like that. But obviously it's like a mission, because you've got to take a flight to the UK, God. Set up a hotel. You might as well spend a weekend holiday over here, type of thing, to do it. So I did that. And then I was like, same guy. you know, and then, you know, as you know, of course, like, yeah, everyone famously knows like the Foo Fighters thing with you as well, you know. And I was like, right, okay, cool, right, there's a thing here. And like, I was very attracted to whatever it is at the time. My ear just seemed to have lent me towards that, you know.
Yeah.
And it was
Okay.
really interesting, you know. And then like, I
Yeah.
only found out recently that you did the first Don Brocco record.
I mixed some of the tracks on it. Dan Lancaster was producing it, I think. I can't remember. It was quite a while ago. I think it was before Jason got involved, I think. And Dan Lancaster was producing it and sort of singing on it. And then before he sort of got into mixing, I think he maybe had done a little bit. And I remember I got sent these things to mix. It was a lot. That was a while ago now. It's like 10 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. That first album was like
I could
2010,
barely
2011.
remember it, but I just remember having conversations with Dan, who's I really like Dan. He came down, and I had met him like once or twice, but basically I did the mixes. But yeah, I'd forgotten about that. I don't think they were they as rocking then? I can't really remember, to be honest with you. I haven't listened to it for a long time. But yeah, I don't know. I've done all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
No,
No, man, there's nothing, you haven't done anything that's shit.
well, no, it's because you haven't found it yet. No, I've been lucky. I've been really lucky, actually, that I've always managed to work with nice people generally, which is great. Which is you know, there's nothing worse than dealing with arseholes, as we know. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I've been very lucky with that. But what's interesting to me is that as a young guy, you were interested in who was working on the records, because growing up in the 70s, like I did, with, you know, obviously we had albums, it was all vinyl, and you know, everyone loves reading it, and I would actually be more, half the time I think I'd be like, sort of, oh, they did it at so and so studios. Oh, okay, cool.
Right.
You know, rather than I had no concept about production or engineering. I didn't, you know, even the sounds of records, you know, I suppose I've talked about this actually with friends of mine, that I'd put on the record and I just loved the record, the song, whether it was a Stranglers single or whether it was Bebop Deluxe or whatever the hell it was that I was thinking. And I had an older sister, so I remember her buying Quadrophenia and things like that, and we'd go down to the record store, you know, where you could put your headphones on in a listening booth and listen to a bit. I was like, oh, okay, brilliant. And so I was sort of educated by my older sister's stuff, and a lot of Who records and early Kraftwerk and things like that. But the actual producer or engineer, I don't really ever remember thinking about, but the sounds of the records were more important to me. Like I remember the very first time I ever went into a studio, I was about 16, 17, something like that, 17 probably, and I was with my little local band, and the guitar player and singer was sort of like, he was one who was running the whole show. I was just there playing terrible drums, and we booked into a 16-track studio to record, and in South London somewhere, and we were so naive, man. We booked into a heavy dub reggae studio. We had
always reggae, man.
Yeah, he's come back to haunt me again, and I love reggae, but we didn't know what we were doing, and so we saw, oh well, this one's £8 an hour or 16,
right?
So we booked in there, and then when we got there, we're like okay, all right. So and this guy, and I think that it was called Ariwa Sounds, and it was a guy called Mad Professor who was like this dub expert, and he made some amazing, like, you know, incredible dub plates and what have you. But we were there as this little white bread, like, new wave band. I don't know what he could make of us. He was like, oh fuck. It's like, okay, well, this is just like a few hours of my time, whatever, you know. We were so hopeless. But I remember just being really excited about being there. And I remember him doing all kinds of weird effects on when he was mixing it, you know, and I had no idea about anything. And we would sort of take it home and go, yeah, okay, great. That's our record kind of thing. But I wasn't like, I fell in love with the studio, and I wasn't like, you know, to me, I just put on, went, okay, well, that's us then, you know. I wasn't aware of drum sounds. I wasn't aware of things. It was just the music. And it wasn't until I actually started in studios and started to suddenly go, oh, right. So you can kick drums, or bass drums can sound like this, or they can sound like that. Or, I didn't know that you could make things sound differently. I didn't know that, I was so naive about this. Despite playing in a band, like if the guitar player's guitar sounded like that, that's what, I don't know, that's what guitars sound like. I don't know, kind of thing.
Right.
And it was, I was so punk rock about it, man. I had no idea.
That's great, man. That's so good.
Well, yeah, except I look back and think, I should have taken a bit more interest, but it's it's funny. And the idea of who engineered or produced a record, I was like, I don't know, it was just, I don't know who, I know now who did the early Strangler stuff, or who did the UK subs, or who did the Ruts records, and they are fantastic. Particularly the Ruts album is just, the first Ruts album is amazing, still amazing sounding album with incredible players on it.
Yeah.
But at the time, I don't know, it's just, I like the songs. That was it. That's all it was. I remember buying AC/DC albums, and I went to see them in '79. I went to see them twice in '79, and I'm really old, man. And
You're
and
not
it was
old, dude.
brilliant. And it was brilliant, and it was at the Hammersmith.
You're not even
Odeon,
50 yet,
as it
are you?
was. Hey,
You're not even 50
what?
yet, are you?
Mate, I'm so past 50. I've had my first jab.
Do you know? I didn't realize this. Okay. Side note: we have the same birthday.
No, 25th of September.
Yeah, 25th of September, dude. We have the
No.
same birthday. Yeah.
Put it there, man.
Yeah. How fucking sick is that?
How weird is that? There you go.
We need a joint birthday beer.
We need to discuss this in depth.
We need to discuss this in depth. Yeah.
Uh,
And Will Smith.
obviously.
Some heavy hitters here, man.
Right. But I loved all those records and all that stuff, but I had no idea who's producing it. So the fact that you'd actually thought about it, I think, that's really interesting to me. It's much later on that I took an interest in it, so I suddenly realized what happened in studios.
Yeah, I think it came from the fact that when I, even though I don't understand, it sounds really stupid in being this far down the line, but I don't understand 200 hertz or whatever it is, that stuff. It's like completely
It's boring.
It's nonsense to me when someone goes, oh yeah, I'm just going to duck out 1,000K or whatever that is. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're on about. When sound engineers go, I listened to how good that guy's mixed in some, so I'm like, does it sound, I say this to everyone, say it to my students, does it sound good? Yes or no? That's the ultimate question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like it? Yeah. Brilliant. Excellent. Job done.
We're on then.
Yeah, you're wicked. You've completed it, mate. Well done.
See, I'm literally the most untechnical engineer and producer. I say that. Obviously I know what I'm doing, but I'm just not interested. I just find all this stuff, and there's lots of people, who really geek out on it, and thank God they do, because I'm always asking them questions when something doesn't work. But I personally, I find it kind of, it doesn't really interest me, that sort of stuff. And I suppose maybe because of how I started, which was it was all tape, and it was pre-media stuff like that. So I think digital record, I think it's brilliant. I would never want to go back to tape. Trust me on that.
Oh, really? Interesting.
No.
I've got opinions about tape, right? Is where people go, oh man, it was on tape, it's better. It's like, no. I've been sport, right? I've been fortunate enough to record in Air, British Grove and shit. And every time I've spoken about tape, they go, 9 times out of 10, it's a detriment to what you're doing. They said, it's just it's so interesting. There's the whole thing with there was that Foo Fighters thing with Studio 606, and we got the original tape machines and stuff. And I'm like, and then the thing is though, when you hear that record, that they did with it all to tape, whoever's mastered it is brick walled it. So it doesn't matter that it's on tape anyway, because it's fucking loud.
It's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing, this. And a few things that you have to sort of bear in mind. One of them, with you have to, people also go, oh yeah, back in the day, doing it on tape, that was brilliant. It's there was no other medium. There was only tape. It wasn't like
Yeah.
we had a choice to go,
Had a
"Oh, we
choice,
could do it
yeah.
on digital, or we could do, no, that's all there was. So, and people sort of go, oh yeah, well, oh, these records sound great, on tape. It's like, great records sound great. There were a lot of terrible sounding records made on tape.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's just because it's on tape doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't mean shit.
It's either good or shit.
Yeah.
And the limitations that you have with tape are far. I think digital is far better. It far outweighs what you can do with tape. There's obviously there's a thing. It provides a thing.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. But half the time, that thing didn't make things better. I'd record something and immediately came back off tape. I'd be writing it up again.
Right. Yeah.
It's and like, if you want to do even the simplest things where it's just like, oh, I want to do a backwards guitar. It's like, okay, no problem. I've got to turn the tape over. I've got to count backwards down the tracks to find out. I'm not going to go over the snare drum, because it's backwards now. So so track 23 is now track 2. So okay, well, I can record on track 2. You sure that's not the snare drum? No, that track 2 is now track 20. You know what I mean? And then you do it, and then you flip the tape over, listen to it, and go, yeah, it's not quite right. Let's do it again. Oh god! Whereas now, you can do anything. You can try. So what's that like backwards? There you go. That's what it sounds like backwards. I mean, there's still adventures to be had in recording. There's still things to try out, and of course. But as far as actual recording medium's concerned, and the D to A converters and the A to D converters are fantastic now, and you can have tape simulation plugins that are great. Why would I want to go back to using tape again? And it's expensive, and at 30 inches a second you got 15 minutes on a reel, right? So you can get maybe 3 takes of a song, and then you either have to go over it or you do a new one. It's just there's so many things, and it's a lot of
reusable. Once it's been cut, isn't it? It's fucking done, isn't it? It's away with. Yeah.
A lot of rose tinted specs about working on tape, and look, it's, if you can afford it and you love doing it, go for it. But it's not going to make your record suddenly sound like your favorite album from the 70s. It's not going to suddenly sound like Physical Graffiti because you've done it on tape.
Yeah, dude. It's funny because like when we did Art Disconnect, the album you mixed, we ran it through a tape machine, right? And then into, I can't remember which way round it is, but there was a system that Andy, the engineer, had, and he was doing something. He was like, oh, something's not sitting right. He goes, hang on a minute, I'm going to reroute this. And he just had like, I don't know, had something in a tape machine where it was just on, and it would go through it, but it's not going onto the tape. Yeah. And then it would go into, I think it was the desk that that Band on the Run used.
Okay.
So it's in that studio, and they just use it for the preamps in that area.
Oh, right, great, yeah.
So then it came out of that, whichever way around it is, I can't remember the exact order of the chain, but it was like through the tape bit, into that desk, and then into tools, and then where it went through the in-house Neve desk. You've seen the picture of that big desk.
Yeah, I'd like to go down there sometime.
Yeah. It's an amazing place. And then into that desk, and then it went into tools, and then I think he did a thing of like, here's it without that chain, here's it with, and it did a thing, absolutely. Like, but it was better for what we're doing. But he was like, it's just because it didn't work the other way, he tried something different, and then it was like, oh right, there it is. But is it like a better? No, it was a convoluted fucking system that took another couple of hours to make a chain because something wasn't sitting right somewhere. And it was a luxury that we had tools to be able to kind of adapt or have a different opinion about stuff, but yeah,
but it didn't ultimately, you weren't like, it wasn't a blown away difference.
No, it was like, to me it was more about how the low end of the drum sounded. Like the attack of the tom sounded like a bit, someone was like, oh, they sound clear. It's like, I don't think they sound clearer. I think it just pulls out. I think there was just more like
yeah, well, that's what tape does. It gives a sort of
yeah
bump. Yeah, that's exactly it. It gives a low end bump.
Yeah. And because we
What you-
recorded half of the record live, so like the bass and the drums on that record were recorded live, and it definitely, there's definitely, I don't want to say like enhanced, but it did. There was something that was not quite working beforehand, and then afterwards, it did something where everyone was like, "Oh right, yeah, there's."
Okay.
It's kind of brought it out, you know. But
Yeah.
I've
No,
I've done I've done things with it
tape
before.
is great. It's great, but
Yeah.
it's an expensive option.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think people get really wrapped up in the ideology of what it really is, you know. And like when you really hear records, and especially like, you know, when people say like, oh, digitally remastered here and this there, and then you know, you get people going like, oh, there's something missing in the dots and zeros, that it doesn't sound quite right. And I'm like, you know, it doesn't sound quite right because that's all you heard. You know, it's like, you know, I hear people go like, oh, digital guitar sounds, they sound digital, and you know, you can't tell a difference between a Kemper and a fucking, you know, Plexi. And I've been in a room where these people have gone like, you can't tell the difference, and someone's cloned their Plexi, gone A and B, and they've gone, guess which one's which, and they couldn't guess it. It's like, come on, man. Like, you know, I've been there while people have gone, it's that one, and someone's gone, no, it's that one. I'm like, does it sound good though? If someone's like, yeah, they both sound great, and I'm like,
Well, then you're done. Yeah.
well, then what's the fucking problem then?
I know.
You know? And then people go like, oh, the feel is different. It's like, yeah, okay. There's definitely like, you do that with the Plexi and it has that sag and it does a thing. Absolutely, you know. And I'm well into all that shit. I love amps and I love guitars and shit, you know. But you know, I'm very much on the proviso, like I said before. It's like, does it sound good? Yeah, it sounds great. Cool. Then we've got there, gentlemen. You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. It is, you know, you can wax lyrical about these things for ages, and it's like, you know, look, you know, people have, you know, like, oh, I can't record vocals unless I've got this microphone, or I can't. I mean, I've recorded like virtually entire drum kits with SM57s before. You know, I mean, look, the other day, right? Here we go. The other day, I was working on this track, and I thought, you know what? Need some backing vocals on this, need some harmony on this chorus. So I thought, oh, fuck, I'm just going to do it. And I was mixing this track, and I just got this mic here that's cost about, I don't know, 50 quid or something like that. And I just plugged it in to this little preamp I've got here, which is really, and I just sat there and I sung them, right? I just sung the harmony parts and I blended them in. And the guy was like, yeah, brilliant. Thanks a lot, man. It sounds great. Right. But it took me like 20 minutes on this cheap ass mic. It did the job. I don't care. It's the part, you know, the part is more important than the sound, you know.
Yeah.
And that's the same with mixing or anything. The parts are what the arrangement and the parts and the instrumentation is what makes a great record, more than the absolute sonics of it. You know, some of my most favorite records sound like a bag of nails.
Yeah.
But they're just fantastic, you know, and the parts have so much feeling, or the arrangement.
The vibe, innit? It's what they feel.
Yeah. And if it can sound really good, then that's a total bonus. You know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's interesting. It's a lot of, you know, I was having a bit of a joke with someone on Facebook the other day about someone going, oh, it's all in the fingers, you know, and I was like, it is all in the fingers. And they're like, yeah, but you've got like a dual amp rig with like, you know, like a MIDI switching system. I'm like, it's not in the fingers, man. Like, it's like, you know, it's in that, you know, and we're just taking the piss, but you know, again, people get wrapped up in all that stuff, and like
people get very wrapped up in it. And I did a lecture once a long time ago.
What mic did you use on that kick drum, Chris?
Well, that's right. Like... well, it was and some young lad was asking me, you know, what plugins should I buy? And I said, well, you don't buy any. I said, you get with your DAW, whatever it is, whether it's Pro Tools or Reaper or Logic or whatever it is, you get a bunch of stuff with it, right, for free. And I said, you know, learn to use those to start with. And the compressors all kind of do the same thing. Some have a different coloration and what have you. Some are, you know, but they will ultimately do a similar thing. And same with EQs, you know. and start off by using those, and like until you get to the point where you're thinking, you know what, I can't quite get what I want out of this. I'll spring for 100 quid on this whatever plugin. And it's like, oh yeah, brilliant kind of thing. I mean, I've slowly built stuff up over the year, and I did it as an experiment actually. And I remixed a track I'd done to take down, I think it was ACM actually in Guildford, and I remixed it just using stock plugins as a challenge to myself to see if and it,
Right. Yeah.
and it was fine. I mean, there was some differences, but ultimately it was there because apart from anything, the recording, everything was in the recording that I wanted, sort of thing. It wasn't like I was, I spent the time to get the recording as close as I wanted it to could be. But it's you don't need to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds. You could be creative. And when you think back when I started, you had the mixing desk, you had the tape machine, and in the racks behind us we'd have, say, I don't know, 4 compressors. Right. So when it came to a mix, you had to be creative on the recording side of things, because when it came to the mix, you only had a certain amount of outboard gear to play with. It wasn't like nowadays where I can have anything on any channel. I could have delays, compressors, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You couldn't. You had to make a decision. It's like, well, I've got 4 compressors. What's going to be on the compressors? What's going to, okay, well, maybe the snare drum, maybe, okay, it was a different, so you had to think, you had to be experimental in the recording to make it, you had to get there, so to speak. And then the mixing was the sort of the icing on the cake.
Yeah. Yeah.
The mixing wasn't a big deal. That's what I'm trying to say, really, at the end. It was already there. That's why we, compressing vocals to tape, or, finding ways of making things sound like the way they do. Like, I remember talking to Nigel Godrich years and years ago when he was just doing the Ben's Radiohead album, and that fantastic vocal sound on Planet Telex, the opening track, where it's all kind of like quite distorted.
Yeah.
They just did it like that. They're not like a clean version of it.
Yeah,
as far as I know.
committing to the sound of it, like, yeah,
absolutely. And why not? It's like I much prefer the idea that somebody's messed around with guitar pedals and delays and stuff like that. And I used to do these records with Shed 7 years ago, and Paul Banks, a great guitar player, and we would work stuff out so that what I really liked was, instead of splitting the guitar parts up so that there's like, there's the verse part, there's the chorus part, we would set everything up with his pedals so that he could just play through the whole song, switching pedals on, delays and stuff like that. And
that's awesome.
And then we'd just track it.
Yeah.
And then that was it. It was done. And then he'd pop a solo over the top of it, maybe. But it was very simple, but it was so exciting. And I did the same thing with this great guy called Al, amazing guitar player, was in a band called X is Loaded. And a great band I worked with a long time ago. And we would do the same thing. He would like have all the pedals going, and we'd be just playing all the way through and get the levels right. So when you finished it, that's it. There's the song. There's the track.
There's all the parts. Yeah.
It's
all done.
It's like I was making someone laugh the other day when I was talking about when I did the first Therapy single when I did with the boys, Scream Major.
Yeah.
There
you go. There's another record that I had, and I was like, oh,
right. Yeah. Right. And when we did that, and that was all on tape still back then, a 24-track tape, right? I used, I think it was 22 tracks on the 24-track tape, and it was done. That was it. It was like drums, bass, 3 rhythm guitar track. I can tell you exactly what it was like. You had a Hamer guitar, old Hamer humbucker guitar, which was humbuckers. So they did 2 tracks of that through his Marshall. And then I had this Strat, and he did 1 track through the Strat to make it a bit more of a pointy sort of sound.
Yeah.
And vocal and 1 harmony, I think. That was it. And it's done. And it's like, I go, yeah, sounds brilliant. Okay, moving on. We didn't even use the full 24 tracks.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then there's a guy I know years ago, I used to engineer for him, a producer called Ian Brody, who has a band called the Lightning Seeds, and he produced Echo and the Bunnymen and all kinds of amazing.
Yeah.
And he once said to me, if you can't fit it on 24 tracks, there's something wrong with the arrangement. And he's right.
Wow, that's a really poignant thing to say. Yeah,
but he's right. It's like if you've got to do so much work to spread it out, like all these bits and pieces have got to fit together, and it's like, and obviously you can't. It's not always going to be like that, particularly if you're like huge band, and you know, but he's right, and you know, it's all about the arrangement and making things concise and to the point, and I love that. You know, I don't like fat particularly.
Yeah. Well, because I was going to ask you a couple of questions about my record that you did, because there's parts where it's just obviously just a straight up like power rock trio moments, and then there's moments when there's like 24-piece orchestras and pianos and acoustics and 12 strings and fucking all sorts of shit going on. There's me trying to be Daniel Johns from Silverchair, like trying my absolute best, you know, to do it. You know, how do you do it? Because I remember like hearing it, like I said, you know, like just an MP3 bounce of like, you know, oh, this is the raw stems of everything like that. And I was like, how the fuck is this gonna come? You know, it sounds like someone's fallen over something, because it's just this mishmash of shit. You know, and then you came back and it's this beautifully presented. I'm pretty sure you must have replayed all my guitar parts.
Well, yeah, I re-sang it too, and I played the drums.
I knew it. I fucking knew it, man.
You know,
it's like at the end of that Warren Hewitt interview, you're talking about. You said, "Oh, I'm working with a band at the moment, and I'm changing all the hand claps." And I was like, "I've just sent my stuff off to Chris," and he's just said, "I think he's talking about me." Yeah, and then I looked at the timeline, and I was like, "He's talking about me." He's moved all my hand claps. I spent hours clapping.
That's right. Oh, no, I've been busted on live TV.
Busted. Send an angry email to Warren, like you've made Chris.
Christ, you ruined everything.
You ruined it all.
You know, so many of these things I don't even think about anymore. So I don't, you know, I have to sort of stop and go, okay, well, why do I do what I do? The processes, you know, because it's like anything. It'd be like,
why did I take on Nikki's band? Why did I? God damn you, Race.
I hate that guy. Jesus. A lot of the things is you have to think, okay, what is the most important part in this track or this? So if it's like there's strings, and the strings are there for a reason, that they want to be heard, or you wouldn't go to the expense or time of doing it, so to speak. So they've got to, you know, you've got to make sure it's, you know, and I've made the mistake in the past of like, you know, like, oh, it's a guitar band and there's strings, and in the background you might as well just have played it on a bon tempi. You can hardly hear them,
right?
And it's you know, so it's like, okay, well, you know, there's a reason that they're on strings, and you want them to be there, otherwise why would you bother? So you have to start with that premise, that they're the most important thing. Like drums, great, right, they're rocking, and then the strings, we've got them in there and it's rocking, and then you build up the guitars and things around that, rather than going, bam, there's a rocking sounding thing, and now I've got to try and put strings on top of that.
Right.
You know,
okay.
In the same, so you what's the fundamental thing about this track? Okay, it's the piano or whatever. Make sure you've got the piano in there early. I do the same thing. This is quite important, I think, for young mixers as well. With and it's something that's important to do, is that as soon as you've got, like, you know, pretty happening drum sound and bass sound and bit, get the vocal in there fast. Get a rough sort of sound and level, and get it in there, because then you know where you're working towards. Because so often, and I made the mistake years ago, and see people doing it now, where they'll get it, and it's like got this incredibly powerful, on the limit, you know, rocking instrumental track, and then they're trying to put the vocal in, and it's just like, oh yeah, no, I can't. It won't fit. You know, it's like it's right. Everything's distorting now, and whatever. It's just like, well, because you haven't planned this out quite right, and the vocal is mostly the most important thing on the song. You know, it's the thing. It's like a solo. When a solo comes in, the solo, you know, the solo's too quiet, so the solo's got to take over from the vocal. No one ever said, oh, that guitar solo is too loud. It's like, you know, it's too quiet.
Yeah, totally.
So it's got to be there. You know, you've got to give yourself headroom to do this stuff. But by putting the vocal in early on in the mix, you kind of roughly know where you're getting to, kind of thing, and you can start to push levels of guitars till they're like, well, yeah, it's sounding really exciting now, kind of thing, but the vocal is still there. There's still, you could take it out again and then carry on working stuff, but pop it back in and out to make sure you've got enough room. And it's the same with the strings. So like I'd put them in there and go, yeah, it's sounding really big and exciting. Now I've got to make the guitars fit in. So I've got to carve different elements out of the strings. Maybe there's a bit too much cellos getting in the way of the bass guitar. So, okay, so I'll alter the sound of the bass guitar. It's going to take a back seat to the cello line on this particular song.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you start to sort of look at the big picture, so that things aren't fighting each other frequency wise. That's the main thing. You know, make some decisions. You can't always have the bass can't sound like the voice of God if you've got like an intricate cello line. You know, it's just not.
Sorry, bass players.
Well, no, I mean, I love a big triumphant bass guitar sound, but you know what I mean. It's like in the same way I couldn't, have like a huge slab of guitars and expect them the strings to fit in around it as well. I've got to, there's got to be compromise here. What's the most important thing?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there's a lot of give and take, but it is a case of carving into things sonically. But it's levels. It's more about levels than anything else.
Yeah.
And perceived levels as well.
Right. What do you mean by perceived levels?
Well, because sometimes people go, oh God, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I want it to sound like those slamming guitars from so and so, and then you put the record on and go, well, they're not really slamming, are they? Kind of thing. It's like, it's actually, you remember it being like that because you love the tune, but actually the mix is a really good mix.
Yeah.
But in your head, you're like, oh man, it's fucking, yeah. It's like a lot of Led Zeppelin songs, and I love Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
But the mixes, people go, oh, I want, this huge drum sound. Well, it's like, it's a huge drum sound, but not a huge roomy drum sound.
Yeah. People get the misconception of it. Yeah.
It's a fat drum sound.
Yeah.
It's not, and it is room around it. And they've carved the guitars and stuff to work to keep that sort of sound. But it's not just like a massive, boof, baf, boof,
Yeah.
He wasn't that kind of a player anyway. He was a much more intricate, player than that. So, people have a sort of perceived idea of what some records sound like. And like, I remember I was mixing this blues band, a blues rock band, and I really liked it. And I was thinking, oh yeah, it's kind of like Bad Company, like after Free or Bad Company. I thought, yeah, okay, cool. And I put on a Bad Company record. So, oh yeah, because I used to listen to them as a kid. Put them on and I'm like, wow, man, there's like no bass on this record. I mean, it's just like they went, yeah, we don't need any of that. It was weird. And I didn't remember it being like that.
Right, yeah.
At all. And like, Mick Ralph's a great guitar player, but it put it on and it was like, wow, it's kind of thin sounding sort of thing, kind of.
Yeah.
But it wasn't how I remembered it. So people go, yeah, I want these drums to sound like this. And you're thinking, okay, well, I'm not sure that will really suit the rest of the music, but it's kind of not probably as you remember, sort of thing. It's interesting. That's what I mean by perceived.
Yeah. I very much bit of a random kind of like simile here, but like I think it's the same thing with like bits of art, like with tattoos, for example. Like, I see people, they draw their own tattoo and go to a tattoo artist, go, exactly this, and they go like, are you sure you want exactly that? Yeah. And they're like, line by line, they're like, exactly that, and then they go, this is shit. And you went, no, I've copied what you said. It's the same thing, I suppose, with like, I think when we sent you stuff, we didn't send any stuff with it, just like, there you have it, do your thing with it. That's why we want you to do it, because we want your seed planted in there, or your frog spawn rather.
I'll send you a vial of both. It's funny. Some people will send me stuff that's incredibly inappropriate sort of music. They go, I want it to sound like, I want the drums to sound like REM and the guitars to sound like, I don't know, freaking whatever, Wings, and I want the vocals to sound like, it's just like, okay, and it's like, well, you probably like those songs, but and those records, but it won't really fit together. Most of the times I'll sort of go, okay, I kind of, what they mean is they like the vibe of something.
Yeah.
They don't want me to make it sound exactly like Band on the Run. drums, they
Yeah.
just like the feel of that, or they like the feel of the guitars. You go, okay, I understand, not hugely gained or processed or something like that, a bit more organic-y sounding. And that's what they mean. They don't want me to listen to it and go, I've got to recreate, something like that. But a lot of time, you work with musicians all the time, the same as I do, and some people are better explaining things than other people. They may say they want it to sound green, but they don't mean that. There's a certain feeling they get from a certain song. And could it sound would that work within this song? You go, okay, yeah, I understand the vibe you're going for. I can't recreate that, because it would just sound maybe, the way the singer's singing, it just wouldn't work, sort of thing. But I understand what you're trying to do. I understand, sort of thing. So it is difficult, so I'll get sent things that I'm just listening to and thinking, this is so different from the music you sent me. What is it that you're hearing in this that you like? And sometimes I do a little back and forth with bands just to kind of, and then quite often it's nothing really. It's just like, oh, I just really like the way that the drums grooved. I'm like going, okay, great. I'm thinking, well, that's nothing to do with the sound of it. It's just what you've played, and that's great.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
I think there's also like
anybody,
No, of course, man. I think with it, there's like a timestamp with stuff. Like you said, like you've gone back to the Bad Company record and going, where the fuck is the bass with it? You know what I mean? But at the time, your brain has captured a sound which might not be what it actually really is. And you do it with records all the time, like, or things you do, you go, oh, I remember this being really good. And then you're like, or a film or something, and you watch back and you go, this is shit. I remember it being awesome. You have like a snapshot in time. And I get it with like sounds. I always I like listening to the overall thing. So like usually it's like the drums that kind of pull me in. I go like, fuck, that's how a drum kit sounds. And then I'll go to like the car, and listen to it, and I go, fuck, that sounds awful. So it's like, why do I like that sound on a particular system or setup? Do you know what I mean?
That's an interesting thing you've just touched on there. And a friend of mine has said as well, who's a mixer, and he's quite right, that sometimes when you're making minute adjustments for like bands, and they're like, the drummer's like, oh, maybe I could have the cymbals up a little bit, or a bit more top end on the bass guitar, or whatever the little things, and you're thinking, okay, but it's not a problem to do this. But you have to also realize that if you listen to this on the speakers listening, and then listen to it on a different set of speakers that somebody else has got set, the differences that we're making are nothing compared to what it's going to sound like. On a different, so like somebody in somebody's car, they've just got all the treble turned up, and that's how they like it. And you go, no, it's like there's so much hi-hat on this. You go, it wasn't like that on my system. And it's just because you've got to take a different EQ. So all these little adjustments you're making, and you're thinking, it's fine, I don't mind. It's obviously it's not a problem for me, but it's in the big scheme of things. These are teeny. It's more about the arrangement. Is the arrangement right and the vibe right of the mix? And is the, is it moving you in the right way? That won't change.
Yeah.
But the EQ will.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, and then people, sometimes should bear that in mind. It's like, it's actually more about, does the mix move me? Am I, enchanted by it in some way, rather than, okay, we got the top end right, kick drum sounding good, kind of thing. It's like, it's not a checklist.
Go through a checklist of like it's an MOT of mix.
Pass.
This one you failed on the low end here.
And unfortunately it all sounds good, but the song's terrible.
Fuck though, that's another thing, right? When I do like co-writes and stuff with people, or people do co-writes with me and stuff, and they sometimes you can get wrapped up in, oh, that sounds, is like, again, that simple thing I was saying earlier on is like, is the song good? Is it good? Then it will be good. You know, you could play it on a fucking accordion thing or a Korean banjo mandolin thing,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
and the song will be good. You know, it doesn't matter what it's on, you know. Like, you know what, you always get like classic songs like remixed into dance tunes. You're like, yeah, that sounds cool. And it's like, well, of
It
course
still
it will do,
works.
because it's a good song. You know, you
Yeah.
can
Well, that's
do
right.
anything with it.
And a really good song you can do in all as many ways as you like, because it's ultimately the you know, the melodies and the sentiment are there. So if you
Yeah,
do it as a funk song, or you do it as, you know, a rock song, it's still a great song. There's definitely better ways of showcasing the song than, you know,
yeah,
like full out like rah, rock version that probably isn't really going to capture it. But
yeah,
you know, at the same time, like, nor would a full orchestral version would sound just ridiculously grandiose. And sometimes just a piano and vocal or acoustic guitar is all it ever needed. You know what I mean? But it will work because the song's great. That's the wonderful thing. If you get, you know, it's like, okay, what are we going to do with this? Yeah, where do you want to go with this song? Because we could do it any number of ways. But ultimately, you find the way, you find the path. You know, that what works best for it. You know.
you can almost quote Jurassic Park there. Everything comes back to Jurassic Park. It's like, you know, the mix will find a way. You know.
It will, man. It
Yeah, do you
will.
know what I mean? Like, it totally will, man. It's so interesting when you hear, like, I think as well, like, right, from a songwriting perspective, with when you see like a journey of stuff. And I made one on the song The Art of Disconnect. I did it when it was an idea from my phone, a video of me, like, you know, like my hair's all makeup everywhere like that, going like you know, like bumbling over some chords. And then it was like, oh, here's a structure to it. Here's the riff when I came up with the riff. And then here's it when I wrote it with Georgia. And then here is it in the studio, me tracking the guitars. And then it was, this is what it was like before we sent it to Chris. This is what it's like afterwards. And then here is it fully mastered. Here's the real thing. And you're like, fuck, that's, you know, it's like an 18-month journey. This
Yeah,
song
how
went on,
exciting though, man.
you know, and it was accidentally captured, you know, but it was a great, like, little 5-minute, 6-minute video that I just put together,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
you know, of
that's how it
hearing it.
works with
It's amazing.
songwriting, though,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. You know, it's you know, I think it's different for me. Like, sometimes in a band situation, you know, when you hear, like, you know, like the other day, I've had this riff sitting in my head for days, you know, and I was like, I can't play it on guitar yet. I've got to really work it out in my head before I, you know, can hear it back. And then yesterday I was like, it's time, you know, like, it's time to see if it works. You know, I always get this like nervous thing of like, if I pick up the guitar too quick from what it sounds like in my head, I might be really disappointed and put off it. So I have to give myself some time with it. And I go, okay, it's probably actually, you know, because I've got really good relative pitch. So I can like pretty much just go like, okay, right, I know this is going to be in B, you know, and I know that note is going to sound like this, and kind of build around that. Which is weird because, like, if you hear a bus go past, you go, oh, that bus just broke in C sharp. You know, like, do you know what I mean? Weird shit like that. And you're like, that's really annoying. Or, you know, you'll hear, like, I did it this morning. Beck was there and she was watching a video on her phone and it went like, or something like that. And I was like, that's the same note as this other song. And I started singing. She was like, you're fucking weird. You know, you're crazy, man. You know, I've just completely lost my train of thought by doing that. That's like classic ADD move. I can't remember where I started with that. Was I? Oh yeah, so I had like no. Was that it?
You were talking about songwriting and the you know, you had a riff and you knew how it was going to go.
Yes. So I think as a songwriter, hearing stuff back from like having it in your head to getting those things back, for me, like, it almost becomes like an emotional thing. Like, I'm quite an emotional fucking guy when it comes to that stuff anyway. I really kind of take it on. Like, I remember feeling that when I track that, like, it comes back quite, you know, quite
Okay.
like as a very visceral thing, you know. And yeah, and like I said, like, when I heard The Grip, like, it's a fun sounding song, and when I just heard it, you know, And I was just like, oh my God, like, wow, you know, like such a, you know, it's such an experience hearing that. And I don't think like other band members who aren't songwriters, you know, I don't think they always experience it like that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
So
that may be. That may be.
You know, it's a really interesting like point of view about like hearing how like things are from, you know, how like they sound in your head and then somehow it comes back at you at
to
some
the
point.
final thing. Yeah.
At some junction.
Which is also, I'm sure, can also, as a songwriter or whatever, can also be incredibly frustrating if you feel like you're not going down the path. You know, if you're working with a producer or an engineer or whatever, or other musicians, and it's not going down the path you think it should.
Yeah.
It must also be very, and I've seen that happen in studios, you know, when I was, you know, T-boy or whatever, you know, I'd be watching and I could see it's like, again, this is where the producer should have been like, I am not the guy for you, because, you know, or they should have discussed this earlier on.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just like, I think my idea of where the song could go is so different from what you think it should be.
Yeah.
Maybe we shouldn't do this song together, or you know, what have you. And it's nothing personal about it. It's just people have different views, you know, different you know, ideas about things. And I've seen it happen in studios, you know, again, when I was younger, several times. And you like, the producer walk out of the room and the band would go talk to the engineer and go, do you think we're doing the right thing? And you know, or it would happen to me, and I was engineering, and I go, look, you know, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you should have, maybe you should have, guys should have discussed this beforehand. I'm not going to start saying, he's an idiot, you know, kind of thing, because that's not what I'm going to do. But you really should talk about this stuff beforehand, because you're wasting a lot of time and money. You know.
You know, I had you know, I funny enough, you know, before lockdown, I didn't own Logic or any recording software. I'd never done it before. So over lockdown, I was like, right, I'm gonna, because the thing is with it, it's always like, oh, I should get into that, and someone's always gone, oh, don't worry about it, come to mine, I've got a studio set up and we'll demo at mine. So that was always taken out of my hands, and it's something I vastly regret, which is probably why I can't mix. You know, it's, you know, like teach an old dog new tricks type of scenario. But like, I've learned, you know, I've only got like a Focusrite 212, you know, type of thing, and this shit.
Oh, well, then you shouldn't do any recording ever.
Right. Are they terrible?
Oh, yeah, definitely. No, that's fine, man. Yes, so the police will be around.
Right.
Yeah, you.
I got it for like 80. I got it for 85 quid, and I thought I got it as a bargain. But if you're saying it's not great,
not in the. I was taking the piss. No, not at all, man. All that stuff is great. None of it is bad.
Yeah, so I've got like
those Focusrite things are really good. I recommended them to a few people.
Oh right, okay, cool. That's good, because again, like my knowledge on it is not a thing, because, you know, before lockdown, it was like, hey, can you come down to Brighton Electric or whatever? You know, when I was living in Brighton, it was like, can you just do a session? Can you come bring a guitar, play a riff over this? And it's like, yeah, I can do that, you know. And then it went to lockdown. It was like, I'm going to lose a load of work here. And so I've thoroughly enjoyed like learning, you know, and then I got like well into like neural DSP, and I've got like the parallax and the nollie and the Fortin stuff. And I'm like, fucking check these meaty guitars out, you know, but because I started doing all these stupid riff videos, right? Because I was experimenting with stuff, you know, and just going like, oh, you know, I write 30-second riffs, you know, people can buy them if they want, you know, or what have you. And I sold a few, which is really cool, and you know, always helps pay the, you know, puts bread on the table and all that. But I've had a fun time like discovering it all, you know.
That's great. It's really fun to do.
Oh man, like, but it's a wormhole. It's like when you first discover like a fuzz box and you go like, what is this? you know, like, and not one is the same. Fuck, you know, and you just go down this massive rabbit hole. Like I got well obsessed with like wood on guitars for years ago, and I was like, fucking, you know, like I've got this guitar, it's like it's a reverse headstock Strat, and it's built round my hand, you know, it's literally designed around like how my palm sits on the neck. It's like a baseball bat, like I've got fucking ginormous hands, you know, and it's got like massive frets on it and stuff, and it's like Sussex 400-year-old wood reclaimed out of the earth, and it's like all this crazy shit. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, it's fucking English fucking wood. You know, it's been you know, like it's older than your mom. Like shit, it's been under it's a, you know, it's like from down here, do you know what I mean? And all this shit, it's just like, oh man. Like, but it does sound sick. Yeah, like it does sound absolutely sick, but you know, it's just like it's just wood, dude. It's maple.
It's the guitar.
It's a maple. It's just a maple neck, bro.
Yeah, just relax, brother.
Yeah, cool. And I'm like, yeah, it is. But it says made in the UK in it. It's got my name on it and shit. It's fucking great, you know. But you know, you get like over obsessed with it type of thing. And I'm definitely doing that now. I'm like, oh, I need to find a sweet compressor for this snare drum, you know.
It is a rabbit hole, man. It really is. Yeah. It's very easy to get lost in that. And I was thinking the other day, if I was brave, I would go through my plug-in collection and I could probably delete about 60% of them I never use, you know, because I found the things that I really like and that work really well. And
and you just go to those, don't you? Because you know how to use them, type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, all that stuff, like, you know, all these recording things, whether it's Focusrite or you know, and whether you're using Logic and all these, they all do the same thing. They all do the same. I use Pro Tools just because that's what I started with and I've stuck with it. But it doesn't make it. It doesn't. It, you know, Pro Tools isn't better than Logic, which isn't better than Reaper. You know, but they're all, whatever you're used to and whatever it gets you through is fine. And whether it's, you know, and it's the same with instruments, and it's the same with plugins, you know, whatever it takes to get what you want, you know, in your mix or in your recording, then that's fine. One of the great things about digital recording that's happened over the years, though, what's brilliant is the fact that now, quite in the old days, like somebody go, oh, I played this guitar on my 4-track cassette and I really liked it, can we use it? Like, I'm thinking, okay, and we'd have to try and find a way of putting that on tape and putting it on time with them, you know. Like nowadays it's just like, yeah, man, absolutely, you know. You know, I've worked on stuff that was real basic demos that are then just being, you know, enhanced, but they were the sort of basic thing of it, because they've been digitally recorded, you know, they're okay, you know, maybe not the greatest sound, but you know, if you've recorded a DI particularly at the same time, you're laughing, you know, you can change that to any sort of sound you like, you know, kind of thing. So it's amazing what you can do now, you know. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's like, well, again, going back to our record, some I think it was 2 tracks that were actually the demo vocals.
Right.
Just, it was one of those things like threw it up, like, you know, sung it with George, and he was going like, yeah, try this, try that, you know, and then kind of like pieced it all together, kind of like, oh, here's a random take and just did all this, and then like, not gonna fucking better that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And just like, well, you know,
famously there was 2 tracks, I think, of that that Christina Aguilera's, one of her massive hits she did with what's her name, Perry, and it was just, that was the guide vocal, wasn't it? I can't remember, what was it, one of her, Jesus, I can't remember the name of the bloody song, but it's a great song, it's really good. But and also Everything I Do For You, Bryan Adams was a guide vocal by all accounts.
Yeah,
isn't that incredible?
Yeah, that guy's amazing anyway, though, Bryan Adams. Like,
yeah, you know, I mean, he can really, whatever you think of his music, he's a great singer and a great songwriter.
Yeah, he's a good player. Like, he's a good guitar
player
he
too,
man.
Fully is. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just like, well, yeah, it's great, it's done. And he was working on the record with, I think Mutt Lange produced it, and he just said, well, yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you, it's great. We'll use that.
Yeah, totally. We'll go with that take. Yeah,
I think we will.
Fuck yeah, it's crazy.
Now, I'm gonna have to knock it on the head.
Same here, man. I think we've been chatting nearly 3 hours or some shit, you know. Shame we don't have a beer, you know, and it's like early in the morning.
I feel like I really ought to do some work.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm like, oh, I've got a lecture in a few hours, so I should probably crack on with that.
Oh, that's great. Are you doing online lecturing?
Yeah, it's all online at the moment as well. And because Beck's pregnant, like, I can't go out Anyway, it's not like, oh, I can't go out, she's bloody pregnant. Like it's like at any moment, you know, got to be on call to like run, you know.
Is it imminent now?
Well, like we're into the 3rd trimester,
Right.
and it's she's got hypertension and hyperemesis, so that can like bring on very early pregnancy. So it's like we're into the 3rd trimester. It's like all hands on deck, the bag's packed right down here.
Yeah,
like,
you gotta have your bag packed. That's right.
Just in case, you know.
Yeah. I remember all that stuff, man.
Yeah, so
I missed my second daughter. First, my wife has a thing called Group B strep, which is like a blood disorder thing, which doesn't affect you in normal life at all. You wouldn't even know you got it, but it does affect pregnancy and like or when the baby's being born. And so as soon as her water's broke, you've got to get in there, bam, and be on this drip straight away. Shit. Either that or the baby then goes on the drip afterwards, sort of thing. So the first baby was like sort of, we were in there for like 27 hours, I think, for Molly, who's now 18, and for Grace, my second one, I missed it because Sarah wasn't dilating, so they said, well, you might as well go home. I went, all right. And I suddenly got this phone call at like sort of 3 a.m. like, come around now, and I'm like, jumped in the car and got down there in about 20 seconds flat. And by the time I got there, she shot like a cork. And just like, ta-da! I was like, all right. Yeah.
Fuck.
The whole thing, which she never lets me forget.
I bet she doesn't.
I was like, your fault for coming out so quick.
Yeah, exactly. You could have waited till the morning.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, I was right in the middle of my second REM sleep right there. Or whatever. Yeah. Oh, dude.
Anyway, listen, man. Fantastic to chat.
Yeah, it was wicked, man. Thanks for your time, dude.
Oh, good. Absolute pleasure, man. It really was. And I'm looking forward to be able to sort of hang out in person. It'd be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm a bit closer to you now, so.
Where are you now?
Caterham.
I'm just sorry. Trying to think, which way's heading? Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's south, going south.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I know. Yeah. Home of the sports car.
Sorry?
Home of the sports car, the Caterham.
Yeah, that's it. Caterham 7, isn't it? Yeah. Great car. Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, listen.
All right, dude. You take it easy, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. If there's anything else you need, let me know.
Yeah, will do, man. Yeah. And take it easy, man. Huge love.
I'll speak to you later.
See you later, dude. All the best,
cheers,
man.
Mate.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. You know what to do. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. Really help us out. And don't forget, you can also support my brand new record out on Patreon now at patreon.com/Nikki Smash Official.